Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello. Hello to men, women everywhere, and all the ships at sea.
To another Humpday Q&A.
Indeed.
We're going to be joined by a couple of guests for the community, but I guess first we should go through the usual bits
who are you and I? We'll do that later, right? That's right. Sorry. Yeah, I'm out of order already. You're out of order. You're all out of order.
Let's see. Do's and don'ts. Randall, jump right.
Oh, yeah, right. I have the token lieutenant position here. So be nice. Be friendly to each other. We're all friends here. We try to be friends anyway. Don't post anything that's adult or offensive. Don't advertise or promote anything in the chat room. That's strictly reserved for us because we're putting on the show. Don't spam. Don't post the same thing again and again, especially a question. I'm watching for questions in the chat room. And if you post the same question twice, I take it away from the first time and put it on the second time. That puts you later in the queue. Don't do that. You're just wasting your time and ours. We do not tolerate any kind of harassment. We do have resources and ways to make sure that you don't do that here or anywhere else. So please don't do that. But again, do have a good time. We have a good time producing this show. That's why we keep coming back and back and back, doing it again and again.
Okay, let's do some introductions. So my name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter community leader and CTO here at Dev Angels London. And you can follow me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. Scott can't be here today, but Randall's here. Randall, introduce yourself.
Randall, I'm a Dart and Flutter GDE from the very beginning of the program, even before they had the name Flutter as a GDE. So that was pretty cool. I was a web GDE for about 6 months. That's a Google developer expert, somebody who Google has vetted to say, I get to be able to talk about this kind of stuff with y'all, which is a great thing. And I also get to appear in presentations all over the world virtually. That's been a lot of fun as well. I'm also the question magician for this show, which means that when you're in the live chat. And if you're not in the live chat, you should be here. Don't wait
Indeed.
and watch this 6 hours later or 2 days later. I've seen some of those. No, watch it live. You get the best information because you can ask questions. You do that by in the chat room, in the live YouTube chat room. You put Q : in front of your question, and I will pick it out and put it so that our illustrious panel can answer it. That's the way you get into the show.
And talking about the panel, we have some guests with us. So let's introduce them. So first of all, Danielle, welcome to the stage. There you go.
Hey, everybody. And you'll notice if you're looking in the chat, I started us off with my first question. So for that, so that'll be good when it comes time. But hi, I'm Danielle Cox. I'm a Flutter developer, and I lead a team of Flutter developers at a startup called Howdy. And I'm also the organizer of an organization called the Flutteristas. So if you're watching this and you're female or non-binary, and you don't know about the Flutteristas, hit me up. I'm available on Twitter or anywhere else, and I'd love to talk to you about it and get you to join. So that's me.
Thank you, Danielle. And we also have John. John.
Howdy. Yeah.
So...
One of these days, I'll get downstairs and get some work done on that. So John Weezy, I'm a developer architect at Microsoft in our Android group that works on our Android platform systems, and I've been doing Flutter since way back in the day with Randall and everybody else. Been around doing stuff for a while. Got a few apps in the store and hang out with Randall over in Discord answering questions for folks.
Us old timers.
Yeah. Been a long time.
So just before, go on. I was gonna say just before we came on the stream, we were talking about like when we started programming. So I want to hear so Danielle, go on. What did you start programming on first of all?
Oh, that's a good question. I was gonna say Flutter. I'm a newbie because I only started in January 2019. But anyway, I started
a while ago now.
I started way back when I was in 9th grade on a Commodore VIC-20. And it was a case of I actually, for Christmas, I wanted to get this. And so because my cousin had gotten, I think, a TI 99. And anyway, I liked it. I looked around. I liked the VIC-20. I got everybody to give me money for Christmas. They could give me money for Christmas or my birthday or any of that. Took my entire life savings. I was like, 13, 14, something like that. Put it together. And I went ahead and bought it plus the cassette tape drive for storage on it. And I think that was the princely sum of $250 back then. And so fell in love with it immediately and have never turned back. So
that's one. I heard a story the other day of someone said, I used to have a cassette, and they were like, what's a cassette? They never heard of the term cassette.
Yeah.
I felt really old.
Well, the
you don't dare bring up 8 tracks. What the heck is an 8 track?
Oh man, yeah.
We had that.
We all went cringe as I said that.
Yeah. I was gonna say the cool thing about the cassette drives was I had a friend that had an Atari 400 or 800 or whatever, and it had its game on the cassette tape. But what Atari decided to do with it, and these are all running on the same chip and stuff, so they're very similar machines. But what Atari did is they put all of the data on one track of a stereo cassette tape. And so the other tape would play. The other side they could actually play through to the TV, and so he had a game where they would play the tape. They would cause the tape to start playing, and so it would play the tape. They'd feed through to the screen, so you could actually have a soundtrack that was much better than what the computers at the time were able to come up with.
They started doing that in the 90s on a lot of CD-ROM style games, didn't they? They started adding like audio tracks along with data tracks so that you could actually download or run your game, and then the game would actually start playing the audio tracks off the CD. So you had CD quality audio, which was a big benefit over what we had before.
And I still have in storage a processor technology Sol, and this Sol 20 had a 64 by 16 black and white screen and a really wonderful keyboard, even better than any keyboards today. I don't know why the keyboards have gone downhill, but wonderful. But it used cassette. That's what made me remind there. So you could squirt stuff in on a cassette there. And I had a Penny Whistle 103 acoustic coupled modem. If you could find a Bell 103 set today, it's already in a museum. But if you could find one, that thing inserted into a couple of rubber caps. You guys don't know how good you have it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
I I do remember the time when I changed like the 56K dial up to just being straight plugged in, no longer like
Oh, that was amazing.
It was like, oh
RJ45. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. No, RJ11. RJ11.
It's RJ11 to RJ45.
Yeah. 45 is ether. Yeah.
My first job, I was using a PDP-11 that if you had to reboot it, you used paper tape to boot it with. And my second job actually was a step backwards. And if you wanted to boot that, you actually had to use toggle switches on the front of the machine.
Like
to actually put in the address. Yeah. So,
I built an MSI 8080 for the school, and I had the 11 or 14 step bootstrap memorized. C3, B2, A1, like that. I had it all to quick. Yes, it was great.
It's interesting we're talking about this because I don't think how many people realize computers still work this way. Like I know we're talking about this, but it's still bits. It's still ones and zeros. Yep. It's still the same operational style. It's still von Neumann. It's still like this same principles and everything. Like you can take old style software and still run it. It still addresses the same. It still works the same. It's just super more layers and larger buses and bigger bandwidth. But principally, it's all the same, and that's kind of interesting in itself.
So and it's amazing now that you can take code that was originally written for these computers of the day and compile it to WASM and have it run in JavaScript fast enough that they have to slow it down to make it emulate at proper speed.
For sure.
Wow. Wow.
I was going to say, I think John started about the same time I did, maybe a little bit younger, but.
Somewhere. I started probably when I was in about 5th grade. We had moved when I was in 2nd grade, and my old neighbors had some older sons, and one of them had a TI 99 4A computer and was going to get rid of it. My parents were like, well, you seem like you're interested in computers and stuff. You want to go check it out or maybe buy it? And so we did, and that's where I started on, and then progressed from there after doing a bunch of stuff on that, just playing around with it. That was an old, all-in-one kind of big unit with a cartridge reader. And
was it like a cassette reader? Because I remember those ones. I remember Spectrum. So this was Timex. Was it Timex in America? I remember the Spectrum we had in the UK, which was it was like one long unit, and it had the inbuilt data recorder, which is just a cassette tape thing built in. And you would put it in, and then like play. I remember having to hit like play and. Was it record or play and fast forward whenever you wanted to like save something? I think it was, or
play record at the same time.
Was it play record at the same time? You had to press them both at the same time, and it wouldn't work.
Right, because record just sets a bit, and the play and pushes the record head in, and play gets the motors working. They were on separate controls. Now, how do I know that? Okay, just to give people a time frame, to give you kids a time frame, I wrote my first code for hire. People paid me for it. In 1977. So that will give you the scales there.
Randall wins that one.
Randall, it's like was it
you kids.
Randall wins.
Fatality.
What was that code on, Randall?
That was actually where was that? That was it was time shared basic on an HP 2100 system. I wrote a text editor and corrector that was, we named it text organizer, something, we called it Toto so that we could immediately have another version call it Toto 2. So that was terminal oriented text organizer. That's it. So we wrote a text editor. I wrote a text editor in time shared basic, got paid for it through the school system.
So that would have been just around the time of Edline, right? So just line editing. Right.
Yeah, although that was access on systems they didn't have access to, but it was back in the day. It was a long time ago. Right. All
right. Should we have a look and see what questions we have in the chat? I think we've.
You didn't answer the question, Simon. You didn't answer the question, Simon.
Oh, I do want to answer. I'm. It's kind of interesting because I grew up across that boundary. So I grew up without the internet, which the sort of generation younger than me would grow up with the internet, right? So I was. I was 16, 17 when we got dial-up or something around that sort of age, right? And before that, I managed to get hold of some second-hand computers at you call them garage sales, right? Or garage.
Garage sales.
garage shells. And yeah, so I got some old Spectrums. I actually have my original Spectrum books on the shelf there somewhere. And I taught myself, Spectrum Basic. And I would get the old magazines and you type in reams and reams of Basic out of the magazines to realize that you made a fatal mistake and have to go back. Or even worse, it would crash and then you'd lose the entire thing that you typed in. You forgot to actually save it to a tape, and then you were good to go again. But yeah, it was that kind of and I mean, it was already old tech when I was playing around with it, right? So I got it secondhand. However, it was great learning, and one of the things that I thought was really interesting about that is when you first start those computers, you're just stuck at a prompt, right? Basic. Same goes for the original IBMs when you could boot into Basic ROM and you just sit your programming. So the experience of a lot of people those early days was programming, right? You could make the computer do anything you want, and then suddenly we got into like the UI side of things. With Mac, and some you just still had like macros, and I can't remember what it's called on Mac. The kind of stuff where you could like, it was like a macro system, right? And we had that on Windows as well. AppleScript, that was it. Yeah, AppleScript. And you kind of started there, but then it started kind of getting sort of washed to one side with people now like sort of purchasing software pre-made, right? So a lot of the time before that, you would, you still purchase software, but you're scripting and joining software together to make the computer do what you wanted to do was quite a common practice thing. Anyway, we kind of moved away from that right now. I think our audience are already into programming, so that's to preach into the choir there. However, and then got my hands on a PC very early on, 386, and that was with Windows 3.0. I think it was 3.04 or something. I remember upgrading to 3.11.
Windows for workers.
Yeah, I do have the unique position. I have the unique position of never having owned a machine that ran Windows in my life. Ever.
Okay. Congratulations.
Apples all the way. Yes.
I do remember doing QBasic, Quick
And
Basic
Atari.
in DOS. That was quite a thing to build games and stuff in Quick Basic stuff. Pun not intended. But yeah, like so it was all going that sort of route, and then before you know it, you're creating, if you're using Windows, you're creating Windows apps, and before you know it, away you go. And then web came along and all the rest of the stuff, and then finally we're here at Flutter. There you go. There's my history.
Yeah. There you go.
Right. I guess we'll get on with some questions. Oh God, someone just said Windows Me. No, we don't want to. I literally forgot about that till you brought it up. It was like erased from my memory.
That and Microsoft Bob are two that I try to forget about.
I've never heard of Bob.
Oh, you didn't? Oh,
yeah, we'll talk some time offline about it. Yeah, we'll talk some time.
And Clippy.
You don't want to. You don't want to.
Yeah.
Don't forget Clippy.
Was Bob the dog one? It was.
No, Bob was the first kind of login security stuff that we did way back.
It reminds me of the Norton antivirus at the very beginnings.
Yeah, and I think that was like one of Melinda's projects or something, if I remember right. It was a while ago.
There's also, it's kind of interesting that anyway, we're talking history here. Let's move on. Let's get to some questions. We've got some questions in the queue. And just a reminder to everyone, if you have a question about Flutter, we're actually here to talk about Flutter and Dart. If you are having any questions, put a queue in front of them and we'll get to them. We're going to get off the history topics and see what we can talk about right now. So let's jump to our first one here. Any breaking changes to 310 and Dart?
Yes. Yes, there are.
They did announce, it's in the release notes. I don't know if I thought I've had any issues with any breaking changes. I think the further I'd say that you are back, for example, if you didn't have null safe code, that's it, you're broken, right?
You're out of here.
Yeah, because now Dart 3 is null safe only. That means, and to be clear, that sounds null safety. That means your code and all your packages have to be null safe. Full stop. So
no more legacy execution. No sneaking in an old library by saying a library header that says this is 2.9, not 2.12. You can't do that anymore. That's gone.
No, and we've already started seeing questions on
And
On
and
Discord
no
about it.
migration. So there's no migration stuff in 3.
Right.
If you want to migrate, I suggest using the tool called Puro, Puro, to have both the new Dart and the old Dart installed in parallel. And then you could take an old project, run with the old Dart, get it migrated using the Dart migrate tool. Then you can finally switch it over to Dart 3. So I suggest having an old one installed with Puro always.
To be clear, Puro is the very first one. It's like FVM, and these are just packages that let you run multiple copies of Flutter at the same time and let you execute one version of Flutter/Dart on one project, another version on another. So this helps you migrate code in this situation because you could be running Dart 2.12, 2.19, whatever on one, and then you can migrate it. And you can actually use Dart, the Dart migration tool, if you check out 2.19 or previous. And you can, with the Flutter tool, do, is it Flutter channel 2.19 or something like that? There's a way of like checking out exact version. I forget how you do it. Or, of course, you can open up your Flutter repo directory, your Flutter SDK directory in your Git tool of choice, and you can just check out a tag. And you can also just Git checkout tag and 2.19, not 2.19, Flutter, it'll be Flutter 3.7.
3.7.3.
And then one of those, and then you'll be running back, and then you can migrate with the tooling that's built in, like Dart migrate command. And then once it's migrated, you can change your environment back to Dart 3 or the Flutter 3.10, the latest, and then continue on from there.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if I'm just going to actually take a quick look at the release notes because I think they published the release notes now, right? Like,
well, and I just dropped a link in chat for the breaking changes list.
Oh, you did. Perfect.
I did.
Was that
I have the power.
Was that in the public chat?
In the public chat, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And like always, I really think the biggest breaking changes in there for Flutter are going to be APIs that were already deprecated. So if you'd already upgraded to 3.7 and addressed all the deprecations, you should have no problem with those. I mean, the other stuff looks fairly obscure to me.
Let's have a quick look on the stream. See. There we go. You can get your ticket as well. Let's have a look. Do I get this big enough? I'll zoom in.
Zoom. Enhance.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, so obviously Dart 3 changes.
Yep.
APIs inside.
I saw Dart 3's already had an update.
Yeah.
I got a notice this morning there was an update.
This deprecation of the Windows singleton is quite interesting. I actually had to migrate some code to use the platform dispatcher, which is now the new sort of system for that. There is instructions when you I don't know if there's actually so look, I obviously haven't looked. So the testing one has a new view parameter, if I remember rightly, and then which one? Instance platform dispatcher. But truthfully, if you'll do it, you should be doing view.of if you're on a context in the sort of have a context available to you, and that will give you your Flutter view. And the idea is that this starts preparing us all to support Flutter multi-window, which is to be announced coming soon. TM. Yeah. So and this is what actually got me as well. So this kind of thing that you might have done before, if you really were so inclined to do this, then to be honest, this is probably not a good thing to do because you don't get this doesn't register your widget to be built again if the device pixel ratio or locale change, right? So the language could change, but it wouldn't rebuild this widget, right? So if you want to do something like this, then you should probably be looking at you can use media query. That's one option, or you can also use the widgets binding observer, widget. You extend that mixing and you can listen to the changes on locale and things like this. So, but yeah, this is the new mechanism now. So if you're in a context, you want to do view.of context. And I think there's one for testing as well. Here, I've put down here. So now it's you get your widget test, and they have binding window, which is what it was before, and now it's view. So that's how you access these same properties now. And this is the one thing that I really liked, and something I think all of us here got to work on early on, which was they actually asked us. I can't remember when it was. Flutter 2, I think it was after Flutter 1 got released, so it was a while ago. and that was, what did we think about breaking changes? And the answer was, we want breaking changes, because I feel like I've been around long enough to know that keeping legacy code and keeping support for lots of legacy interfaces just really clutters up the development experience. And you end up having to do weird workarounds for backwards compatibility, and never know what happened. It gets bad. It gets bad, really, really bad. So, I mean, I definitely voted for having breaking changes. And one of the things was, as long as they provide this kind of information, which is, if it's a big breaking change, what do you do to migrate? And they provide this wonderful documentation in the release notes. This is absolutely brilliant to show you what the changes are and how you migrate from one to the other, right? So all of this information is totally valuable, absolutely brilliant.
And I mean, one of the things to point out here is this is API stuff, so we get to have both for a little while.
Yes.
With this kind of a breaking change, we can have both for a little while. Unlike maybe say like a language to change to Dart or something, where it's one or the other for breaking change.
I mean, to say that, we talked about like the Dart 3 changes. Let's see what it says in here. Actually, I think this, Dart 3 migration guide. I mean, the real changes for Dart and that null safety is not a new thing. We switched to, was it null safe in 2.12, Dart 2.12, which was Flutter 3.1, 3.3, something like that, wasn't it? It was what? Or was it before that?
Before that.
Was it? Oh,
yeah. This was around IO 19, and so we were still 2 something for sure.
Oh god, I maybe it's 2. Yeah. No, I don't know. It was a while ago. I can remember. But it's been around. That's the point. Like, it's been around. Null safety came in Dart 2, and I can't remember what version of Flutter we were on then. But it's been around a long time. So there's a long time coming. So dropping this support is nothing like ultra new, right? And I think that, again, they have a deprecation system, which is deprecating these old things so that breaking changes are not like, causing problems for people. And I think the key here is to, I've heard some murmurs from people which are like, oh, I broke all my stuff, because they never maintained their package or their app. So they were on like a really old version. So they've skipped a bunch of steps. And now they're trying to update. And of course, because you've skipped all that time, you've skipped everything in between. So that can be problematic. And I think you just got, at the end of the day, is deal with it, because you're going to have better product at the end of it, right? So, just putting some hard effort in the beginning means in the long term, you're going to get that benefit. But also to mention, like, maintain your products, right? Just generally just check back once in a while, upgrade the packages, upgrade the dependencies, keep them current. And, you're going to have way less bugs from third parties dependencies and better, faster code, right? At the end of the day.
You had a question a moment ago about whether what release of Flutter brought in Dart 2.12, and that would have been Flutter 2, because I made videos about Flutter 2 and Dart 2.12 aren't necessarily aligned. You can do one or the other for a while. So I know that was the two numbers, 2 and 2.12.
Oh, it was 2.2. It was 2.2.
Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we mentioned about the migration from 2.19, right? But do you remember the colon syntax versus the equal syntax for name parameters?
We talked about that a few weeks ago, and when we were doing, I think, a live coding, and we were of some of the changes.
Yeah. So that's hold on, and they got a Dart fix for it. That's great. Mixing.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Actually, I've got a question for everyone here. So, have you migrated your code to use mixing class, mixing class instead of just mixing? Because I've done that on a few things now, where because you still have the mixing syntax is still valid, right? Mm-hmm. But the idea is that you should start migrating to being a mixing class, right? Yeah. So mixing class is now the syntax instead of just mixing. With I'm not sure if with is still the syntax that you would use. I guess so. The nice thing, I do have to say, like we talk about this stuff, but the Dart analyzer and Dart analysis server, brilliant. Like not a lot of languages have that. I mean, I know it's surprising to say this, but a lot of languages will have syntax, which is, does this thing exist? Does or is this a keyword? Change the color for it, right? But that's kind of the basic syntax stuff that most editors have. But to actually have something that's that level deeper with the lints and everything else, that's true static analysis over, at the module level is really powerful, and it's not not a lot of these libraries have that kind of stuff until you hit play or run and it tells you you've messed up, right? We get to know, and it's part of the power of hot reload and hot restart as well. We get to know these errors before we hit the play button, and then we get the experience the benefits. So yeah, we got a lot of fun things to start looking at, and there's a bunch of changes that are taking place. We went through these before, so I won't go. This is the same change log we went through previously. I don't know if there's anything. Does anyone else sort of come across any of the other problems with migrations on 3.10?
I haven't yet. No.
So, but I mean, this is the thing. Like, if you've got a problem, look at the release notes, hear the fixes, links to tickets. You can read the conversation around them, why decisions were made as they were, and then how to get around them and how to update your code. This is the best sort of thing that you can say. I did notice that was it row and column are now const. Flex is now constable, as it were.
Yes.
So,
yes, which is awesome. That's amazing.
Really nice. That was really nice.
Yeah. One of the things I would also point out, though, is if you do run into one of these errors, the error messages that you get are usually very good at pointing you where you need to go to figure out how to change it. So breaking changes are kind of a little softer because of that.
I mean, another thing to mention is that if you get like a deprecation warning, follow the deprecation command, click on whatever it is that's deprecated, and it will take you through, and you'll see like the little message in there, and then it will tell you what you need to go look at to migrate to, right? So if you want to kind of figure it out, they provide a lot of hints to sort of move forward. The Android driver migration, another thing that people need to do if you're using Android Studio, because that runs on Java 17 now, which means you need to upgrade your version of Gradle. So something for everyone to do. Interesting. Clipboard, something to a clipboard? Before migration, after migration. Okay, so you could specify null before, null is invalid.
Yeah.
And zone mismatch stuff, which was always a problem before, and they just sort of, I feel like they brought it to light now. But that's also been a problem for a few people. Anyway, there you go. So let's move on. That's your. I mean, we've been going on about Dart 3 and the language features, and we could possibly continue with that later on in the session if people want to. But I think
we've had requests for live coding. You know that means that you're going to pull up a screen somewhere and you're going to type something, and you're going to cut and paste it from some Dart 3 document because you can, and then you're going to mutate it.
We could go look at the new language tool and see what examples they have.
Yeah. Oh, the one I fixed. The one I fixed for them.
Bug fixes and running Randall.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Next question. We'll start plowing through some of these, and get your questions in the chat with the Q in front, and we'll answer them.
Indeed. I'm here watching.
Mike says, "Is there a sample Dart WebSockets app that watches for Postgres, listen/notify, and then forwards that data to the connected Flutter app?" I actually have an answer for this. If anyone doesn't want to, I don't feel like I want to answer everything, but go look at the Flutter YouTube channel and the Boring Show. I did a 3-part series with Craig where we actually did WebSockets with Dart on the server side, and I actually have. It doesn't implement Postgres listen/notify. I have actually implemented that with streams in Dart. So if you want to reach out to me on various social medias, I will see if I can publish that for you. But it's really handy. So if people don't know, you can actually listen for changes in Postgres when they're made, and then get notification from things like functions in your database. So basically, it detects a change. When a change happens, it runs this notify, and then any listeners listening on this channel get notified. It means that you can have multiple connections all listen to changes. It's very, very powerful. It gives you that kind of Firebase-y kind of listen to data as it changes. And then if you post it on WebSockets, you've got that as well.
I believe the Dart Postgres interface, the main one, the one that's used by Supabase and their team, it does have that kind of streaming. It's the same thing as doing snapshots in Firebase, where you get a stream of answers.
There is a Postgres package, but I don't know if they've got direct support for listening for notification. Apparently, they might. So I'll pop that in. I'll bring that up here and I'll pop it in the chat. So we're just looking at the fish. I say official. It's called Postgres. There's the name of the package, and it's got notification, represents a notification from Postgres. So I'm just guessing. Yeah, process a channel payload. So I've done this in the past. I'll just make payload a JSON blob of some sort. But it looks like you can actually listen to notifications on the stream. There you go. So that might be handy. But again, this is what your server code would use to connect straight to the database. And then this would then post of a WebSocket. Whatever you got listening to this notifications stream would then post of the WebSocket to the clients. And then that's why I say go look at the a 3-part mini series on the Boring Show, because that's actually where we covered that. All right. Oh, look, I wonder who this is. Danielle asks.
Do you want to read your question, Danielle?
I can read it.
The call came from in the house.
Inside the room, yeah.
She's behind you.
Yeah, I was complaining about this with Rona, who works for me. You may or may not know her, but she said she should ask this on the show. I said, okay, I guess I will. But basically, I've got a monorepo, and I've got most of my UI code in its own package that I'm including just by including as a package, but with a reference to the the directory in the monorepo. And it seems like assets from there don't exist. The assets are being loaded from my actual application. Is there anything we can do about that?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
It is actually supported. So what most people don't know is there's actually a very secret syntax to asset names that includes other packages. So by default, it looks at your current package, but there's actually a prefix that you use that lets you search for other packages. We can actually go looking for that in a minute. But basically, if I remember rightly, it's slash package or packages slash package name, and then the path for inside that package.
And lib, you have to include.
That's
if it's in your own. That's if it's in your own.
Yeah. So that does mean that you. So when I've done this exact same thing, you have assets in another package like images and other things. And you want to use them in multiple packages. You can just reference that package. And there is, if you look at image provider or any of the asset image and the asset constructor on the image widget, it actually has a package parameter, and that lets you override that. And all it does is it pre-appends packages and the package name to the asset string, and then when it makes the request to the bundle manager. Yeah,
that's awesome. I'm glad I actually asked a question. I also figured it might be worth pointing out the experts on here, other than maybe Simon and Randall. We don't know everything, so it's nice to also do it too.
We don't know everything. It's just when you've experienced. So I've had this exact same. So the only reason I know about this is I had the same problem before, and I went looking and went, oh, how does this work? Why do I have to specify a package parameter? What does that do? And go hunting. I think to say it's kind of interesting, but the more you, the key I'd say to a lot of this is don't go just looking on Stack Overflow and say, okay, grab that. Ask why does that bit of code snippet solve the problem, and go looking around in the framework about what those things and how it works, and understand the problem space. And then as you start learning about things, you start learning about how image providers work and assets and different types of assets with images and how the image decoding framework works inside Flutter. And before you know it, that's a bit of knowledge that you've got. And then when you need to apply that, you've got that knowledge, right?
One of the privileges of answering all the questions that I do during a day in all the different places I patrol is that maybe about 2/3 of the time I already know the answer and I plop it in. But the other third is great because I get my Google skills enhanced in terms of figuring out where the answers are, because they're not apparently available to this person. So I have to figure out why they couldn't find it. I'm really good at that. I'm really good at selecting proper keywords. I have been using Bard lately, which has been fun. Bard keeps up to date, and I got the home team at Google did a good job. It's wrong though. Sometimes you got to watch out. Got to watch out all these AI things.
I was trying to before. It's authoritative. It can basically these AIs are authoritatively wrong. Basically, they say it in an authoritative manner, but it's wrong. Just because someone says something is authoritative, make up your own mind. Check it for yourself, right?
They say it in such a pleasant voice, and does that help? And I'm going, no, it's wrong. It doesn't work. But part of that is also that I'm constantly getting to learn that way too. So I'm exposing myself to other things I wouldn't know, and I appreciate the opportunity that y'all are providing me real world problems that I get to solve all the time, and every day I get a little bit smarter and more of an asset to the rest of you. Again, it's really feeding. It's really nice.
I got someone's attention one time on a interview one time by they're going through, they're doing stuff, and all of a sudden their eyes pop up when I said that my favorite answers on Stack Overflow are the ones that are slightly wrong.
Yeah,
it's because they get me there, but then I understand it, and then a little bit of like Schadenfreude out there is the fact that other people that don't dig into it are just gonna think it's a wrong answer and move on. Whereas it had everything I needed.
I could say the other side of this is that we don't, which we've seen before, especially with null safety, and I think we're going to be seeing it again, and that is so many examples and code snippets are going to be old. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
So you need to take something with it. Whenever you see it and go, this is a solution, take it with a pinch of salt, because it's never going to be one-to-one, because things change. Right.
I have a standard warning to not read or watch any video or blog post that's older than 6 months without consulting an expert. And I say that with very much deliberately, because there is so many ways that things have changed over the years. I still see people trying to do Firebase and get the username as a future. No, the user is immediately there. It's one of the properties you have access to right now.
Yeah.
But that's because Firebase 1.0 or whatever did it that way. That was 4 years ago. Come on, guys.
That's what all the samples are finding. Yep.
And the one little thing, I guess it's a little bit of a self-brag for a little bit, but one thing that's kind of fun is, so I was at I/O, which is kind of fun, but I'm watching the thing, and I had never signed up for Bard, and so during when she's up there talking about it, I signed up for Bard, and like 2 minutes later, she says, and now I get my notification, I'm on the wait list. 2 minutes later, she says it's available to everyone, and I look down, and I had the email saying, I now have it.
Yep.
So I was on the wait list for 2 minutes.
Okay, I think we'll jump into our next question.
Yeah, next.
What will the bundle size of Flutter Web App? What will be the bundle size of a Flutter Web App after complete implementation of Flutter WASM? I mean,
smaller.
Smaller, faster, stronger. The Bionic Man.
That's the point.
It's already gotten half size. I think with the numbers roughly in that sort of ballpark.
I think
so. That's good. That's as of Flutter 3.10 already. So that's already shipping.
You say complete implementation as well, and like the question also is how you implement your app, because you can implement your app with deferred imports, and that makes separate bundles essentially. So you still have and also was it this release with 3.10 that they did the? I think it was this release with 3.10.
So.
To speak out of turn, where they now host the Flutter stuff in the G-Static, right, in the CDN, which also completely reduces your download time, because a lot of people, the more Flutter stuff they're looking at, the more chance there is that they've already got it cached, and therefore they're not downloading that. So that also means that if you're releasing new versions, they're just downloading your code and not the framework code as well, which is also awesome.
Yes.
And that came out in this release, I believe. 3.10.
Yes, it did. Yeah, this release.
Yeah.
That's where I thought you were going. and they improved WASM, but I think I agree with the questioner that it's not done yet. But they definitely have improved with what they're doing with it also in this release.
Yeah. It's Kevin Moore's really been leading the team on that. It's just been awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. Love that guy.
Yeah. I don't think we've got any specific numbers, and I think the key here, and I think this kind of comes out to the community as well, is they can only do so much with their examples and the things, right? They don't have the apps that we're building. So the key here is for us to try it out and report back, right? The best thing that we can do is, like, people in the community go, okay, I'm going to benchmark. I'm going to run a bunch of things, see how big these things are, report on that, and hand that over, link that issue ticket and go, look, the bundle size got bigger in this case. Why? Or great, it's smaller, but I'm less performing. And like raising these issues and concerns that you might have with them, because they need their input, right? How else can they make it better, right? I mean, a great thing that we've seen with the impeller stuff, right, was that they were like, give us your impeller problems, run impeller with enable impeller, and just tell us what's going on. People were doing that, and the bug fixing. Now we have impeller. I think that's also got enabled in 3.10, isn't it? I think it's enabled by default or something.
For iOS, yeah.
For iOS, they've got a couple of hot patches now. So, yeah.
I mean, it's also obvious if you really think about it that it's going to depend on your app a lot anyway. First off, there can't be a constant size, because that's, if a bigger app's going to be a bigger size, period. But let's say, I don't know, you've got like some translation tables that are actually hard coded in your app, and you've got 100 megabytes of strings or something crazy like that. There's nothing that can be done about that. I mean, it's going to be coming down as part of your bundle, right? So it's going to depend on things like that also.
All right, I think we'll jump to the next one. Krupel, I think that's how you pronounce that, says, anyway, can we get translated files for localization given app en ARB? So for those that don't know, localization or the localization frameworks and libraries are just defaulted to ARB. You don't have to use ARB files. In fact, there's no proclivity to any one specific localization format or method. In fact, you can actually, just to give people a clue, you can actually dynamically download localizations as your app runs. So if you want to have a JSON file on your server or some other media, XML or whatever, and you want to download your localizations, you can do that. And each time your app runs, it checks, have they changed? Yes. Okay, download them, use those. You can do all that kind of stuff with Flutter. But interestingly, can we get translated files in? Well, yes. I mean, there's several services. There's Localizely, Localizely, K&S. There's a bunch of these services out there. And what's really nice about some of them is they will automate with Google Translate for you. So you can just like press a button and download your translated ones. However, they will also offer paid people to actually go in and look at the context. You provide screenshots and it links up the text that you put into the screenshot, stuff like that. And they will look at it and go, okay, that should be written this way in this language. And it's quite key because I'm going to, just because I heard this story recently. There was an island I think it was in the Pacific, and they grew up with, historically, they don't have words for the cardinal directions of north, south, east, and west, because on their island, you go clockwise or counterclockwise and in and out from the center of the island. So therefore, all their directions are like 10 degrees that way, 2 miles in, or something like into those sort of terms, right? They would have different measurements. But the point here is that you could not translate that. An automation of translation would not get that right at all, because it's down to context and how you perceive it, and you would have to change the way you do things. So that's the kind of things that when you get a person looking at a language, they can go, it's not done that way. We don't say that phrase or that terminology in our language, and then they can put the correct one in there. So depending on how big your app is, it can always be good to get translations. And also, you'll be surprised how often localization is missed and how many users you miss out on. Sorry, anyone else want to add to that? Sorry, I kind of went off on one.
You did mention people earlier, and you emphasized the word, and I'm just wondering, do we now know if those are people?
Right? Is AI doing it?
Yeah, making money. That's a new profit stream.
One of the things that I enjoy, I'm learning Turkish, and one of the things I enjoy is the untranslatable words, or phrases. You come up with something, and it's like, okay, and when you learn it, it's like, okay, well, it sort of means this, and here's when we would use it, but it doesn't actually mean that, Yeah. One of my favorites, just totally random on that, was if you go into Translate or anywhere else, or actually ask someone in Turkish, ask them about, there's a word, phrase, afiyet olsun, which is, what you say before someone eats. and they'll translate it as bon appetit into English, which is not English either. So
I mean, we
enjoy
would
that.
say that. It's funny, right?
We would say it, and it's actually 100% accurate as far as when you would say it, but it's not. But they don't mean the same thing. But we use them exactly the same way. Anyway,
I'll give you another one I had the other day, which was today and tomorrow are exactly the same word in this language. Can't remember the language. And in fact, 4 days prior and 4 days in the future, or 3 days before, 3 days after, are like the exact same word. It's the context that denotes how you get the meaning.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like you put things one before the other, and it changes it to before instead of after and stuff like that. So again, it's like right, like there's not a direct one-to-one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
Good luck getting a translation service to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about some place where they view the timeline as ahead and behind them, but you would think, okay, ahead is forward in time, like we say forward in time. No, they have the past ahead of them and the future is behind them. And their reasoning is they've seen the past, but they haven't seen the future.
Right.
So they
I love
forward
stuff like
and
that.
back that way and backwards. Yeah.
I love
You're
stuff like
breaking
that.
my mind, Randall. You're breaking my mind.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll go to the next question. I'm building and bundling iOS app for integration test on Firebase Test Lab that uses flavors like dev to build finished success, but gcloud upload gcloud CLI error of test failed to run. I mean, sadly, it's one of these things that you need to look at. Like CI/CD and all this kind of area is you need to look at those logs. Configuration is key. It just takes time. Once it's configured, it's normally great, but you've got to spend time getting that right. And I'll be honest with you, I've never used TestLab. No, never. So I couldn't tell you what would be the best approach to kind of like checking this out and approaching with it. But look at the logs. That's what I'd say, and see what it says. You can actually go to get your logs from the console.cloud.google.com. The gcloud logs are in there. And you might find that you get extra login information from Cloud Test Lab. I don't know. Anyone else had tried Firebase Test Lab and had an experience?
Oh.
No. What might be good, Clad, is to, I would say, try doing something like GitHub Actions or some other test environment. See if they work there, and if this is a particular to how it's configured for Firebase Test Lab. Also, you should run them locally, right? Like these should all work locally. If they work locally, they're going to work on Firebase Test Lab or on GitHub Actions or any one of these remote services. Yeah, I would go for that sort of route. There's also Appium and some other services out there. CodeMagic offers some services as well. Yeah, I couldn't. The point here is you need to break down, analyze it like we do a bug, and say, well, at what point, where is it going wrong? Can I rule out certain things and kind of whittle it down to where the problem actually is? Just because it uses flavors, I don't think that's a problem, because normally, like Firebase Test Lab is for testing like APKs, right? So that's pre-made. So check your build steps. It's output the right thing. That APK you can go install with ADB install on any local like emulator or real device. If it works, it's going to work on Test Lab, or it should work on Test Lab.
Yep. All right, that's a good spot. I've got a break. Unfortunately, I've got another conflict today, so.
All right, thank you for joining us.
We'll catch you guys next week, perhaps, but it's been fun. See you in Discord.
Yes, indeed. See you there. Thanks, John.
Right.
Ciao.
Bye.
Hi, Don.
And then there was 3. Let's see how we go. All right, we got some more questions coming in, so let's get through. We're going to call time on questions shortly, so get your questions in now. If you've got any questions, get them in. I'm having issues with running Go router and block. I'm unable to redirect to login or home screen. Both context watch and context read is either causing an error or state is not updating. Interesting. So I'm going to say that you need to make sure that your block provider, assuming that you're using context watch and context read to get to your blocks, I mean, it's like, I feel like there's terminology is being mixed here, because you can use those on Riverpod and Provider and all sorts. They're kind of common terminology. I don't know if Flutter Block actually has a watch and read. I guess it does. Extensions, but you can only, the way it works, the context watch and context readers, they go to the current context and go up the tree. So if you're looking at context from the app level, you're not seeing the material app and what's inside that context, because that's below you, right? So you probably need to make sure that you're in your redirect function, if it's given a context, that context is below those peaks in the tree. And if they're not, you need to raise your block provider up. So probably raising your block provider up and putting your I think Go Router, when it's added to the tree, it uses the material app context, if I remember rightly, because it uses the material app.router build constructor. So it provides context from that. Equally, it could be the context of the child, which is where Navigator comes in. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it sounds to me like if you're having problems trying to find the context and causing an error, somewhere to that, redirects definitely work with login.
He's trying to expand the rest of the question. This is just a very complex question. It's going to be hard to actually answer that with one chat line at a time. Go to any of the other community services, Discord, Slack, Reddit, and that way you can post a big chunk of code, because I don't think we're going to figure this out just hearing you one line at a time. No offense, but that's just how limited this medium is.
Hopefully I've pointed in the right direction, but yeah, it can be tough. Like the exact error messages will normally give you some sort of indication of where you're looking. You can also do things like provide direct references. Like you can create your block out, so you don't have to use like the create function of block provider. You can create it outside of the tree and provide it directly, and then provide that reference directly to your redirect function inside Go Router. Also, you can build your route for your sort of Go Router object in direct response to a function that you pass in a context, and they can use that context. And you can do that during build at your material app level. There's a bunch of other ways of organizing this, but without any specifics, it's hard to know. I think, yeah, as Randall said, hopefully that helps. Yeah. All right. Next question. What is the easiest way to deploy a Flutter build to Android users prior to getting on the Play Store?
I have a question on that. What do they mean by on the Play Store? Do you mean before you've got any kind of credentials? Because the Play Store does have a way to get beta testers basically with an app, right?
I mean, I haven't used it yet, but there is that Firestore, the Firestore app distribution. I don't know if does that let you do it without? I think it does, right? That lets you do it without having a Play Store account or anything like that. Okay. I've never used it though. The thing, I feel like there's an app. Where have I seen it? I feel like there is like an app.
Don't they have something similar to TestFlight?
Yeah, that's it. It's called app distribution. Yeah. Distribute pre-release versions of your apps to your trusted testers.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole how do I get started thing here. Hang on, let's see if I can. I'm going to pop a link to it in the chat to the documentation, and then I'd say go from there. That's one option. There we go. MS App Center, yeah, it's another one. However, to be honest, you can still create. So I would suggest you, like any of these app stuff, you have to create your listing to get published. It's always the pain bit, right? Go through all the process, but once you've done it once, it's pretty okay. So take the time, create a Play Store list, get a Play Store account, pay your fee, get your approval, get your play listing, and then you can use the internal test track, and you can develop or the beta channel. And these don't go out to people; you have to be added to the list. It doesn't go out publicly. And then when you're ready, you promote that build that you've tested and you're happy with to the release track, to the production track, and then out it goes to the public, and then it will get reviewed by Google and be available. And it's the similar thing goes with iOS as well. Like you have test flight, and you can do pre-releases there, and then you with like a named list of emails, and then once you're ready, you can then publish it.
Because I mean, there are ways to get an APK onto an Android device without going through such things.
Oh yeah.
But there's security concerns with trying to get anybody to do that. If they don't understand what they're doing, if they don't turn back off they don't turn back on their security, it's a problem. So try to go through one of the official ways to get it out there, please.
It's also not easy to explain to someone how to do that.
No, it's not. But,
for good reason, to be honest, for good reason.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen too many, like, people do, and don't do this. Don't go onto random sites and go, oh, there's a paid version of this game. I'm going to go find it on the internet, download some random APK and install that on my device. Don't do this.
Right.
It's going to be full of malware. You don't know what it's going to do on your device. Don't do it. Don't do it at all.
So,
right?
so that's why I'm saying, please go through an official way to get it out and do the work you've got to do on it. If it's not someone that you physically have the phone and sideload it on from Android Studio or Visual Code or whatever, then don't do it. Just because, especially, I mean, I don't want to be flip about it, but if you're asking the question, you should not be doing
it. yeah, right. So I posted that link to the Firebase app distribution. I think that's probably your best bet to begin with because it's there, it works, and there's lots of instructions and guides and everything. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to bite the bullet eventually and take it to the store, I'm assuming, by the sounds of what you're saying. In which case, maybe create a store listing and getting that process underway is probably a good thing.
And you never have to actually publish it. If it's really is just for some internal stuff, you never have to actually publish the app.
Yeah.
So.
Right. What's this? Mona says, can you please explain how to build an IPA file for testing purposes? I tried with Flutter build iOS command and then payload zip rename to IPA. And it's not working. Payload zip rename to IPA. So I think this process, your problem you're having is that you're getting a .app. I think it's .app, isn't it, unsigned? And then when you sign it, it becomes an IPA.
Here's Flutter build IPA directly. I don't know why you're going through the iOS version first. That seems a little weird.
You do have to, for that to work, you need to open up your iOS folder in Xcode and configure the sign-in keys inside of Xcode, and your team and those things and the profile. Just stick in auto on all of that, and then assuming that you have to have your account has to be a developer account on Apple, I think. I can't remember what the restrictions are. I remember you have to pay a fee to have that privilege at some point.
Yeah. So Flutter build has both iOS to build the thing we can test with, and IPA as one of its targets to build it for distribution. Those are two different commands. All you have to do is Flutter build IPA, not Flutter build iOS, and you have an IPA file.
It will fail though if you've not configured your signing.
Yeah. Well.
So as long as you've done that, then you can use Flutter build IPA.
Yep.
You can also just once you've configured your app, you can normally just open up an Xcode and do a product archive, and it will build it and give you an archive. And then there's a button saying upload to TestFlight or App Store or whatever it is. You can do it manually. There's also Fastlane. There's also CodeMagic. There's all these solutions which will you commit your code to your repo, and then it will trigger something, and then that will upload it to the stores for you. Getting a good CI, that's continuous integration environment, is pretty much key to just not wasting your time pressing build and waiting for builds, right? Having, let's say you're a freelancer and you've got a client that's asking for updates. Just set them up with the system. Let them pay for the CodeMagic account. Set up with them and do nightly builds, right? You can set up a GitHub action thing that just runs once every 24 hours. Builds the app, deploys it, and they see the progress of what's been going on. And then if they got any questions and they want to see something sooner, you say, oh, no, it'll be out in the nightly build. You'll see it tomorrow, and just get on with the actual work. Don't waste your time building and deploying. It's just not worth it. Automate.
As long as you just brought up CodeMagic, I do want to also mention that one of the things I found a couple days ago, actually yesterday, I think it was, somebody asked the question, how can you turn a Flutter app into a Chrome extension. And you may think, well, why would I want to do that? Well, it's actually pretty cool. I'll paste the URL in the chat here. CodeMagic did a wonderful blog on how to use their CI/CD to even deploy it. Now, what happens and why would you want to do that? You could publish your entire app as a Chrome extension. And so it's another way of publishing your Flutter work. So think about it.
There's been a few. I think I've seen a few talks and a few things now. Sorry, around this, and it's quite interesting actually. Like anywhere, I mean, anywhere where you could use JavaScript, you've always been able to use Dart code because you can always do Dart to JS and convert. And that's essentially what you're doing there with web. I'm kind of curious how that works with WASM, but I guess we'll just move on. All right, so that's that one. Sorry, next one. Has anyone tried Antler 4 in Dart? I have a compiler class, so I want to use it for assignment. Antler 4.
If that doesn't work, Dart Petit Parser is updated already for Flutter 3 or Dart 3.
What? So what is Antler 4? I have no idea.
Antler's a compiler generator. It's a parser with code attachments, things like that. It's basically a language.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. I'm just taking a quick look right now. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Yeah. And Petit Parser is already updated, and there's actually some really cool things that have been added because of Dart 3 in Petit Parser already. So it's already minimum Dart 3, but play with that too. Works really well.
How nice a parser is going to be with the new package recognition stuff. Oh,
yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be cool.
Wait. So yeah, for those that don't know, we were just talking about this package, Petit Parser. I think it's packages that depend on Petit Parser, like a lot of packages. Yeah, the XML package, internationalization, JSON path, equations, TOML, Puppeteer, PEM, like anything that has to, that is the localized, the language stuff we're just talking about. Anything that has to do anything that has to do any sort of parsing is going to use Petit Parser in Dart. It's really good.
Yeah,
I won't go into
really
it,
well done. I've been tracking that project since it was a Smalltalk project 15 years ago. And Lucas Renegli, I pronounced his name wrong, but has been going forward and implementing it in different languages. And finally, he's fallen in love with Dart because that's the only place he's making it better. And it's really, really cool now. So,
all right,
yes.
Move on. Is there a Flutter package, lib, or engine to create educational exercises suitable for kids, matching fill in the blanks true or false, word search puzzles, drawing, and coloring activities? I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen anything, but also doing that kind of stuff is pretty straightforward to be with Flutter. To be honest, you could equally come up with a simple series of arrays of data and then just present them in a UI, and once it succeeds it picks the next one at random or something. Like, you can do that kind of thing. Yeah. You're muted, Danielle, sorry.
I've got people in my house, and Dorian, of course, is being Dorian at times, so I've been trying to do that more. Sorry. I was going to say also these widgets are pretty straightforward to write, to get what you want. And if I were doing it, I'd probably, for example, include maybe an image that you could optional image and stuff like that, and you could make it to where you've got a configuration. You create like a data class that holds everything in it, and then, like Simon says, you just randomize it and go through, or you can have specific tests, or you can do anything like that. A quick search, I found a flashcard package, but it's kind of old. So it says it's Dart 3 already, but that's about the best I could find, just doing a quick search on pub.dev. But I agree. This, you can make it look exactly how you want to with that, and and with Dart 3, actually, you could probably even make classes that make more sense for the kind of data that's in it. So that'd be kind of cool too. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, Hamza, is this your first time programming? If so, that's fine. But I'm just curious, there are resources. We do normally bring them up. So I'll see if I can find you a link to the sort of learning stuff. There is a subject we call the Subjective Roadmap to Flutter by one of the guys in the community. I can't say the name, Lizhenko. Let me bring this up on the stream. You'll find it here on his GitHub, and it's an image here with resources attached. So this is kind of giving you like a learning journey, and then lots of resources that you can, for each one of those different sections you saw above, for things to try and places to go and material to read. That could be a good place to start for people, for beginners. And so I'm going to pop that in the chat, and if you want to sort of go further with your journey, I think that's probably a good place. I think it's hard to really sort of talk about how to do these things without really seeing it. Maybe we could throw an example together though, because it is quite like kind of fill in the blanks, matching things. What's it? True, fill in the blanks, true or false, word search, puzzle, drawing, or coloring. These are quite interesting concepts, and it's very exactly what Flutter is meant for. Like, this is really perfect Flutter material for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, depending on what you mean by puzzles, if you mean like Jigsaw, that's going to be a lot tougher. But if you just mean like, some sort of a logic kind of something to figure out, where there's just it's still just basically a question and answer. That's not or multiple choice or whatever. That's not hard at all.
Ollie is 2 years older than Jim when Jim was 5 years younger. No, none of those. Yeah, no, exactly, please, no, it's not for kids. No, not for kids.
But that's still easy enough to do, because it's still just got an answer.
Yeah.
You reminded me of that kind of, what was those questions I remember from like
the train
exams? Yeah, like two trains are coming at each other from two different directions at different miles per hour, and like, at what point along the track will they cross when the clock is at 3 and blah 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 blah, and like you're like, what?
Yeah.
What?
And the famous one where it's the fly flying back and forth between the two trains. How far will it have traveled? Some physicist was asked that question and immediately came up with the answer. And the guy says, "Well, we thought you would have gone for the integral of time over distance and all this stuff." And he goes, "But that's the way I did it." He did it the hard way in his head quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, just making some notes.
And if you do it, and you can think of a way to genericize it, make a package. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's another thing, right? If you can do this, make a package, and then people can then
help the world. Help the world, please. Yes.
And there is a section, and before we jump into the next question, just we kind of do mention this, but on Flutter.dev, you will find, let's bring this up, on the documentation section, there is a lovely section over here, platforms and packages and plugins, and there's a whole section on developing packages and what it's all about and how to do it. A lot of this, I think, is integrating native code, but there are simple packages like hello, generate some code, implement your package, developing the plugin, federating if you want to. You don't have to do that if you're not using the plugin. And then you can then, this is all talking about plugins now, but there's a bit about packages.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that? Happy Paths project.
Oh, you've not seen this, John?
No.
All right, I should. We'll announce this today. This is not new and everything. Doesn't feel new to me. So this is what we're seeing here is basically some examples of when you want to do these certain tasks, like WebSockets, as someone mentioned earlier, or background processing or geolocation. What is the happy path? What are some things that you should check out here? The ones you basically resources to kind of get you going, right? So this is just a nice little, and I think these 5 examples here if you want to like find the issue and like kind of extend things. But yeah,
I need to go to this website every once in a while. I think that's probably the problem. I should not just Google for things and land there. I should actually look at the website.
And I love that Randall was in the middle, so he could point right at where he wanted to.
I was like, right.
Yeah.
Right
the only thing I would say is if you're new to this, it's a package that you want. It's not a plugin. So in this case, it would be a package.
I will mention as well that we just had our first Flutter ecosystem committee meeting for first time for a while, a bunch of us, and we'll be starting the Flutter favorites packages back up.
Riverpod.
We're doing the next round as we speak. So let's hope your lovely packages are included. But yeah, anyway,
I'm so tired of fielding questions from people that say, "Well, provider's a favorited package, but not Riverpod. Why?" And it's like, because the committee hasn't met in a while.
Yeah, that revolves around Chris Sells was the chair, and he left, and we've been working through placing another chair and some other things. You know, these are all those lovely minutiae things you have to deal with, but yeah, we're there now, so that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Will Flutter Web ever have impeller? Would it have any performance advantages over CanvasKit/HTML? Can you explain Flutter WASM pros and cons?
Maybe.
Let me take a deep breath.
Yeah. The first part is, I think it's going to. Would it have performance advantages over CanvasKit? Oh, that's the only reason it will exist. If it doesn't have any performance ones, they would not put it over it. And yeah, I'm going to let. Yeah, I mean, WASM's WebAssembly. It's a way to take a web page and make it like basically act like its own virtual machine, right? Basically.
Yeah. So I'll take a little bit of stab at both of these pieces here. So I don't. So first of all, to be clear, none of us work for Flutter. We're community members, and luckily they send us some swag, like our little dashes here and some T-shirts and things like that, right? Yeah. Okay, so get that out of the way first. Okay. However, like in my eyes, like they're writing Impeller as a replacement for the current graphics platform, which is Skier. And that will make it to all of Flutter's platforms, right? That's the way I see it, and that's the way I understood it, right? So it will make its way to web. What the advantages and performance advantages it will have? Well, it won't have to go through, and you won't have to ship Skier with, or a subsystem Skier with your app on web. Instead, it would be a thinner layer that's more directed towards the use cases that Flutter have for rendering, and that's what Impeller is there for. You can go. What is Impeller is a really great talk that was released during Google I/O. So I'd say go watch that. It explains it more and more detail. There's also one on WASM, which you can go look at as well. That was at Google I/O. So go to Google I/O, the latest talks for Flutter, and you'll find that as well. Briefly, WASM. So when you look at JavaScript is source code. It was never meant to be compiled. Right. So what we had was people didn't want to release their source codes, right, to their app, to their web apps or their websites. So it's like minification and other obfuscation techniques, which would jumble it all up and make it look terrible. Right. However, it still doesn't matter how terrible you make it look. It still has to be interpreted. And that is, like we just said with Petite Parser, which is a library in Dart, it has to go through and go, okay, this character is a variable name. Then there's an equals. Okay, we're assigning a variable. And then what is the variable value? Okay, it's going to call a function. And it has to go through and understand the language. That's literally how you read source code and how an interpreter has to read the source code. The different mechanisms, top down, bottom up, left, right, whatever. The point here is it has to be done. Now that is slow. And then what happens, this is what happens when you run JavaScript in your browser. It has to do that, right? It does do things like just-in-time compilation and some other things, but when WASM comes along, there's no interpretation necessary. It is the raw steps that actually happen. So like we just said about assignments, let's say you had a variable in JavaScript called a equals 1, really simple programming line, right? Line of a program right there. You can do that in Dart. That essentially evolves down to move the value 1 into memory location A, for example, right? That is a singular command that the CPU can do in one instruction. So the idea here of WASM is to simplify the logic and the language down to what you call assembly, which is kind of like this base language. And in doing so, you kind of get this obfuscation and you get this kind of performance improvement as well, because it doesn't have to be interpreted. And it can be loaded more directly and it can be isolated. So you kind of get always, basically, what we've wanted from the web for a long time is now coming with WASM, in short. And so what you've actually been seeing for a long time are things like EM scripting and other languages, and we mentioned this earlier. Things like actually taking C code, C++ code, which is meant to be running on the processor, and actually compiling it in WASM and running it in your browser. And this gives you the sandbox isolation of what your browser gives you, but gives you the performance that we didn't have before. So now you can be doing things like DOSBox and all these old systems and everything else, even mod stuff. I've seen Windows running in your browser. It's just right. And you can do that now. So when we say pros, you asked about pros and cons. So the pros are obvious, that's what I just said, performance and all the rest of the benefits you get. Cons so much as that it's not easily readable, right? Like you can't just look at WASM and go, okay, it's doing, you can go actually, if you go look at bring up the inspector tab in Chrome when you go to WASM, like build for WASM, see it in Flutter, and you'll see the source code is just very much like instructions. It'll be like move constant intermediate value from here to here, and they're all like what the CPU does at the CPU level. So from a Cont perspective, it's not easy to debug. However, you don't debug it. Think of it like you do when you write Dart code. You write it in your source code, you debug it in your source code. When you're happy, you compile it for release, and it goes into machine code and goes off, and that's it. Hopefully, when crashes occur, you've got the enough material, enough debugging information to go, okay, this byte at this position in WASM means this line of source code, right? I've not looked into that and how that works, so fun that'll be if it doesn't have that, because native crashes are a fun time because you just get memory addresses and registers, and you go, that's nice. It's not very helpful to me until I'm running the code, right? If you're running the code and something like a native crash happens, you have at least some recourse to look at the current state when it happens and go, okay, this is why. But yeah, when it's out in the wild, good luck. All right, that was my rant. Do you want to add anything, anyone?
No.
No? All right. Right. No, next one. We've got a few more questions, and we'll see where we go. Part one or part two question. All right, let's see. I have a bunch of widgets rendering dynamically. Ooh. Dynamically. Right. The widgets are going to be selected amongst an already fetched items from API by user. Okay. I think we get that. What's the next one? What's the next bit? After selection done, widget's going to be rendered by tapping on a confirm button. However, I need to be able to reorder the items within the selection, selected items saved in a list. Any ideas? Reorderable list view?
Well, for sure on that, but part of what I wanted to say is this is actually a pretty big part of the talk I'm giving at FlutterCon, where basically in my case I've got like a white label app which needs to be configured, and so somewhere I've got a JSON list. That JSON list could be compiled in as some sort of asset. It could be a constant in the code, or it could be got from an API. But the bottom line is I need to render my page based upon what that says. And so I've taken created a widget that can turn a configuration, basically a little piece of data, and can turn that into a widget that can be displayed. And so when I'm building it, I actually can just, build a column or whatever I want out of that list. So in this case, if you just want it to be showing one thing, but I call that with the data that I got from maybe I got from the API, maybe it's got some information that's been added to it, things like that. There's more to it than that, but that's the basic idea then. And so having a widget that can turn this data into something it displays, whether it's a text or a button or whatever, and show that is kind of where I would go with that. And that's, and that's what I'm doing today.
The concept is SSI, SSR, server-side rendering, which is kind of common idea notion that you're providing, you're running that rendering process of building the layout, and then it's sitting down to the app, and then the app then interprets that layout and displays it. So, for example, from a web page, server-side rendering is like you build what would normally be built on the app side, so that you have like Angular or something like that on your client, and it would dynamically load data and render a page of content. That is happening on the server side, and then the HTML is sent down to the very much how traditional websites work with Perl and everything else, but the HTML is rendered on the server side and sent down to the browser. And the same thing can be happening on mobile apps as well. And that's where this kind of comes in, right?
Sure, but
you were dating yourself. Yeah, you were dating yourself for a second there when you said SSI, because that's server-side include, which was old Apache way to do things.
I know.
Yes.
Yes.
Simon's dating himself, so saith the two old people.
Exactly.
Anyway.
You'll catch up someday, Simon. You'll catch up.
but one point to kind of point out here, with everything Simon said is correct there, but I want to point out the fact that it's not all or nothing. We're still rendering most of the app.
Right.
Most of the app is rendered based upon how you've kind of done it. Everything. It's only this one little part, like in your example where you tap the confirm button and it wants to show a widget. Only that part that's showing the widget is the part that would be controlled by the in this case the server side. It could be the rest of it is all done that. Now Can you make an entire app that does that? Of course, but that's probably not going to be that relevant.
The problem you've got, well, at least I've had in the past, I've done similar things to what Danielle's talking about. I did an app a long time ago, 2014, which did so rendering on Android. And in doing so, we came up with a problem where there's actions that you can't send code because you're sending a description of layout. So it's very difficult to send code. So what you have a scripting language like JavaScript or Lua or one of these other things, and you use Petite Parser or whatever to interpret that logic and have some code that you can send over. That adds complexity and everything else along with it. However, the other option is that you send down like actions, simplified forms of code, which are already pre-compiled into the app, like select item. So when you tap on it, you say perform action, select item, right? And it's really simple. But yeah, having very much dynamic code coming down to an app can be very difficult to pull off. I like the idea of what's coming up with Shorebird. That's just my little sort of evolution to that, which is pushing code push, which is when you're sending code down to an app and then the app can run it, which is, again, you can imagine that you build your layouts as sort of Dart code, and then that code push happens and you're getting that on the client side. And that can also then include all the logic that you would have in behavior in Dart code, which is kind of interesting. I don't know enough about that, so I'm not going to speak to it. But
and by the way, Amir has followed up and said, no, it's not. It has nothing to do with the rendering part. It's only about the reordering part that he cares about.
Yeah, I know. We kind of went off on one. We went off on one. Sorry, Amir.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
But to back to the reordering piece, drag and drop. There's some drag and drop components in Flutter that you can use. Drop targets.
List view. Yeah, I put the URL for your reorderable list view in the chat.
Lovely. Reorderable list view, I've always had problems with it, to be honest. It's not been my favorite widget to work with. And it has some restrictions around, you have to key things because it has to, it's always the problem if you do it yourself as well. And that is, let's say you've got, you delete an item from your list, right? And you want it to nicely like collapse out of view. You have a problem. You have a state problem. Your state problem is, you delete the item, and the deletion of the item from the data means that that item should no longer be rendered on the screen. However, you need that data to render the item until the animation finishes and the item goes away. So now you have a two-state problem, right? You need to put the item into a deleting state, and once the deleting state finishes, then it becomes deleted and gets removed. That's one way of doing it. Alternatively, is that you have the data cached inside sort of like your widget layer, and then you return back a widget that is displayed whilst the remove animation is taking place. And again, that's kind of what it does. So you'll have, if you look at the reorderable list view, it has some specific callbacks for insert delete to generate those items temporarily whilst it's collapsing or whilst it's perform whatever animation you want. Same goes for reordering. When you have like a list and you want to reorder and you drag something and you kind of want to make room as you drop and they all kind of shift around on the screen, you can do that. You have to program that, right? Like there's probably some libraries out in pub I've not seen, but I can just go ahead and make it myself. But you can do all that kind of thing where you're looking at where you're dropping it, where the finger is moving, and work out how you want to reorder your items. Yeah, I mean, we can look at that. I mean, it's annoying. It's one of those annoying things, and then that's one of the reasons why reorderable list view exists. I think there's a few packages on pub for doing similar things. Anyway, anything if you want to add to that? All right. I guess let's see. We got our final question in the queue. Mohammed, what are your thoughts about Shorebird? Spoken at Shorebird.dev. If they can do OTA, why Flutter can't? Over the air. This is over the air updates. It's not that Flutter can't. In fact, Flutter from the very beginning and has had this notion of bundles, and it's always been sort of around. It's more about well, first of all, it's very complicated. There is definitely stuff on the platform level that have to change, but also I'd say it's also about the stores themselves and the rules and regulations around the stores. Heavily in the past, and I don't know what the regulations are now, I'm not going to speak to them either, but heavily in the past, the stores have limited this because they want to be able to review an app. So if they want to review an app, they're reviewing an app in that state when the review process took place. Therefore, if you then change it on the fly later, you're subverting that review process. So it's a grey area, and I'm not going to speak to it because I haven't looked into it enough. But I think it looks like, as some people have been doing, it looks popular, it looks interesting. Yeah.
Shorebird's come a long ways, and they've demonstrated it in videos, which has been pretty significant. So it means the technology is there to do that. And the technology has always been possible to do that. The question was, first, the Flutter core team didn't work on it because it wasn't one of their priorities. They didn't see that as being anything that enables and enhances our acceptance of Flutter. It wasn't needed, especially for internal applications, which is really, market number one for all this stuff is Google themselves, because they're dogfooding all this stuff. But also, it's nice that a third party, effectively, which is what Eric and team are now, because they're a third party, are doing this because they've found a way to justify their time being spent on it, and they have more flexibility than Google Core would. So it'll be interesting seeing how this goes forward.
And I do want to point out that Flutter does this, all the time. If you think about what Hotful Reload or Hotful Restart are, they both are doing this. So it's not downloading a whole new app. It's actually updating the app in place. If you ever stop and restart it, you'll see that. So that's something that's probably worth pointing out. The fact. So it's not that it's technically not possible. It's all the other things that Simon Randall just talked about.
Is it time for live coding or going through something?
We could do a little bit of live coding for like the final half hour, I guess.
Sure.
I would love to stick around for it, but I think I need to go. So
I was gonna say, you go stick around or not. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Next time I'll try to, but yeah, next time I'll try to. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, no worries. All
right. Right.
See you soon. Bye.
See, we're gonna pull up the walkthrough on patterns and records, and we can see where the code is that I fixed.
Let's see what I can bring up.
Yeah.
Do you want to see what's going on in the chat whilst I get this?
I am. I'm watching the chat. Yeah, I'm still there.
So I'm very much unprepared as usual.
Oh yeah. Well, no, but you wing it so well. That's the point. You
Thank you.
Somehow, and I've been telling people about this. Your amazing skill to Google while you're talking and bringing up in an entirely separate window is far exceeds anything that I could even get close to. So somehow you have practice at this.
I think it's just many years of doing this show.
Yeah, there you go. You have a couple of years on me there. So yeah. So let me see if I can think of anything. Oh, so we're looking at one issue in our people have been asking me, how do you test a final class? And because you can't implement it the same way you would with Mockito and Mocktail like you would a normal class. And I found out earlier today that they don't even know. Nobody knows. It's a tough problem, a tough question. Maybe some solution will come down the road, but we don't have any way of doing that yet. So don't use final. Don't use final for a while.
I'm honestly, I really hate final. I can't.
Yeah.
I not specifically final in Dart in any way, but just that notion of final or for restrictiveness. I've seen it. I feel like, as said, I think I want a lint check which says, are you like, that's automatically enabled for libraries, right? And that says, okay, you've named this final. Are you sure you want to make this final? And I think again, it's like having like a data class, having models that are final, fine. Perfect. But having logic as final, not good, because you cannot extend that. You just can't do anything with it. That's the whole point of it, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with doing that is now, as a library, you've just reduced the flexibility of your library and collapsed down its use cases really badly. And it's just so awful when I've had it in the past when you want to use something in a library and they just decide, we'll make this bit final. No one can make modifications to this, because they thought no one would, or I don't know for what reason, right? And it's like, no, give me the flexibility to do what I want with. with this code, right? And that's when you end up copying code into your package or doing some other weird thing to kind of solve the problem. And at that point, you're like, well, you're not helping yourself, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Right, let's see if I can get something up and running here. Hang on.
That's an interesting idea. I like this.
What's this? The test can remove final from the source, recompile the test, and then read it. Yeah, thanks, Christian.
Yeah, that's gonna fly.
I mean, it was said before, like Bob was saying earlier. The problem here is making that kind of like having tests behave differently to the code is just you just get this divergence in behavior. You want to really step back from that problem. Like you don't want your test to behave differently from your actual code. That's just like tantamount to being like terrible, right? You can imagine that you're testing it, like all my tests pass, everything should be working. You want to run the code, it crashes, right? Like that's not a behavior that you ever want to see. I personally have seen C++ code which is working fine in debug, it doesn't work in release, and it's just like it's a nightmare to track down. It's super difficult to deal with. So yeah, try and avoid those kind of problems, right?
We get those questions on Discord sometimes, and it's because the debug environment is slightly different, especially for permissions. If your app requires like internet access or some other kinds of permissions, location permissions, and you haven't given it in the appropriate plist file or whatever, then it'll work in debug just fine. And then you put it on a real phone or you ship it, worse, and it doesn't work. Or you attempt to ship it because you're going to ship it to the store managers first, and they're going to say, hey, it doesn't tell me my location. So this is a problem of debug to release already. So we don't want to introduce more of those by introducing testing things. Oh, look at this. We have code. I see views.
We have a lovely counter app.
The counter app. Yay.
Is this big enough for everyone?
It's big enough for me, but I have a fine screen here and not going through YouTube.
This hopefully is okay for everyone, and if not, let us know.
Yep.
What are we doing? I can hit plus. Look, I can get numbers. Look, 7, 10, 12. Like, look at this code go. Look how fast it is. This is all. No, I'm joking. Right.
Oh, wow, the counter app. Congratulations.
I know, right? Look at that.
Yes.
I'm accomplished. I know how to run code.
My first app.
My first app, right? Hello World. Yes, look, Hello World. My first app.
Yep.
I mean, what do we want to do? I mean, we could start.
We'll look at the records and patterns ones. The new ones.
Records. Let's go.
Oh, that's the one where I fixed it.
Let's embiggen.
Yeah.
Embiggen.
It's not making it that much bigger. Okay, good. All right.
We did look at some of this stuff before, but
yeah. Cool. Nothing really to do there.
Yeah. I mean, we need to come up with some like we were saying earlier, like they need to come up with some use cases and stuff, because it's fine to show these examples, right? And it's great, but it's not until you have like a good workable use case that makes sense. I'm going to take my earbuds out because.
Oh, one of the things I did was I was looking at the.
Hang on. See if I still get you.
Yeah, you probably can't hear me.
Carry on.
You probably can't hear me. So I'll tell him and I'll say it again. One of the things that I was looking at was the interfaces, like, for example, dot entries on a map require essentially objects to be created that are big and fat objects. Well, they're not fat. They're probably really thin, really minor. But I wrote a quick extension called .kv that creates records out of all of the map entries. Let me put it in the chat here. It's that's there. It's in my chat, and you can put it up and actually play with it if you want. But what it does is it takes a map and adds a .kv on the end, and now you get records that have a K and a V, and that's it. Very lightweight, extremely lightweight. And then I also have an example of using that. Also, I'll put this in the chat. Here's an example of taking one of these KV mappings and actually dumping it out. Much shorter in use than say using all the old map entry stuff. So a lot of fun. I'm gonna just drop that in the code there somewhere. Yeah, look at that. And maybe you can walk through it and explain what it's actually doing. Or you're just gonna use it. You have to have a map in. Map has to. That's a variable. Sorry, I have a badly named variable. Final map equals map something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. Well, let's make it dynamic. Why not?
Yeah, make it mess up. Now it's a dynamic.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So this is one of the things I really liked, right, about like the patterns, being able to pull out, like doing loops and pulling out the keys and values. I wonder if like we can't do indexed yet, can we? So
No.
we'll use the collection class for index looping.
Yeah.
That's a shame. But yeah.
Actually, you could make the record in. Oh no! Sorry, you can't. Although actually, I could make another extension that's that short that adds the index as one of the items. Index, comma v, be a similar thing. Yeah, there are lots of possible extensions here that will produce records, which will be really handy.
Right. Let's. I mean.
You're turning a Flutter program into a Dart program. Nice.
I mean, like, what do we want to do here? I guess, like,
I'm watching the chat, and they don't.
Why do we do this? You want so those that I can't remember his name or her name. Sorry, that was in the chat earlier, but they were talking about doing that, fill in the blanks, true or false, word search, drawing colors, matching, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
we could do some records and play around with that. Like maybe something there. I feel like there's probably something there we could do.
Sure.
I made a couple of notes because I mean, like, I don't know, like I feel like a data model there is the first I guess the first go to. Let's
the quiz app from Julio.
Yeah, like I'm just trying to think, like, what is the best use? Like,
no, we're not going to write a shader. No.
You're into seeing my shaders.
Yeah,
there's a great tutorials on shaders on YouTube. Actually, I've seen some really great ones. This guy from Disney doing landscapes for Disney in shaders. He does like the entire landscape in a shader. It's amazing stuff. Can't remember his name. Sorry. Yeah.
Would that be Disney or actually Pixar?
I think pass.
Probably doesn't matter. It's all consumed.
Right. Well, I guess what do we want to describe? Let's just make some notes here, right? So, what type of one of these do we want? Like, you could true or false. I mean, like, you could do like a true or false, fill in the blanks. Words. They've got word search. I mean, true false is pretty straightforward, right? So we could actually do. We want to. You can have a model which is like question, and expected answer, or question answer, right? So that would be and that is true or false.
Right.
That's pretty straightforward.
Trainable.
You can also do fill in the blanks. And if you do fill in the blanks, then you kind of got, you know, your question per se has got like, you know, your blank marker in it, right? I've got some syntax highlight there apparently, but you could do like, you know, your sort of fill in the blank, and then, you know, have an answer. So it's more like quiz answer what the blank should be. This is obviously slightly more difficult because these things
matching.
Yeah,
you gotta have a regex or something. I mean, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, the real problem here is more about having a thesaurus kind of aspect to this, right? Where someone might say one thing and it means the same thing as another word. You shouldn't have to type, very much like that. Those old adventure games. You don't want it to type the exact command, the exact phrase. Otherwise, it just says, "I don't understand."
We should call out to Chat GPT.
Oh God!
Is this the answer to this question?
Right.
There.
Matching. Matching is that like the 2-card matching? We have like cards on the screen. You have to match 2, and then they turn around. Is that kind of game?
I don't know. Maybe like 1 through 5 matched with A through E. You know, 1 goes with C, and 2 goes with A, and like that.
When I was thinking of matching, I was thinking of one of those games where you kind of like flip the cards. You have to find matching cards.
I hate those.
That could be something easy to put together.
Those make me mad. I can't do those.
I mean, I think, you know. Let's say this. We got. So we've got a quiz, and then we've got a quiz. We've got blanks, and then we've got what was the matching?
Yeah.
And then that matching is like.
So, is there something we can implement in the next 10 minutes, though?
This is what I'm trying to say. Like, these are all quite straightforward. I mean, does anyone have any? Who's still watching? Does anyone have any?
Who's still watching?
I don't know.
We've got a good chunk of people.
Who wants to? Does anyone like any preference on one of those 3, or do we want to try
take a quick poll?
What was it? I mean, like the nice thing about the drag and drop matching shapes. Yeah, I do kind of want to explain some of that drag and drop stuff. So that could be.
Yeah. I'd like that. I'd like to see that. I feel
like that's kind of an interesting topic. A lot of people find that kind of stuff interesting.
Let's do that.
So
drag and drop records, drag and drop patterns.
Well, the problem here is, like, again, it's like I feel like again, the whole community. Dart 3 has just been announced. A few of us have been doing some beta stuff before. But it's not until right now that we're really getting our hands on patterns and records, and we're still finding use cases. So I think, again, like, we want to hear from everyone watching about the use cases that they found, and as the shows go on, and I think we're going to be finding those and handing them out on the show to other people as we find out. Like the one I came up with the other day was just simply. This is just records, and it was just like cases where I would use a tuple, which was like to link like a label and a function together, or some little bits of data together, just in terms of showing a menu. Like you want some little bits of data points to repeat and be different for each one. And records turned out to be the best solution for that I came up with, without rather using tuple 3 or something.
Right. As Simon, look for the code lab for Dart 3. And find the place where they're parsing the JSON data structure using a single match. And I want to talk about that. So if you can find that, then I can talk about it while you're finding it.
I feel like I saw that was
linked. It's not there. It's actually over in the code lab. This one here is a simpler version. The one in the code lab is much more interesting. But here's the thing. What they're doing is drilling down a couple of layers all in one single match. And that's great that you could do that, but it's all or nothing. It's either going to be the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle is there, or nothing. It's not going to be anything in between. And I think what we're going to have to develop as now this is newly rolled out is the idea of how to match a little bit at a time with fallbacks, so that you know that it's because, yes, I got most of the address, but the address was missing a zip code. You know, how do you figure that out with patterns? And I think that's going to be some fun stuff. You're going to have to look at the actual code.
This is kind of,
it might be in there.
I've linked the code lab.
Yeah.
I've linked the code lab in the chat so people want it.
Right.
And they walk you through like upgrading or setting it up and getting started. So we're gonna skip all that. Oh, here you go. So
and there's the thing we're parsing. That's the document JSON.
So that's the JSON that we want to parse. So we've got metadata, blocks, type, check. I like this. This is like,
yes. It's so typical. It's so typical with mixtures of lists and maps. And oh my god!
Types and pattern matching comes in. So so this is get your environment up and running. Make sure it works. I feel like we go through this, but we'll skip through it. Yeah, create and return records. So oh, look at that! Look, right in there.
Yeah, this could.
So as you can see here, like, so we've got a document. You give it a document. So this is a static. So this just does when document gets initialized, it decodes the JSON into a map. So we get this map of string to object, and then get metadata. Has a hardcode title and date to start with, and then returns a record matching this description here with that information. So we have a named parameter of date time, and then we have just the very first parameter, which is a string, which is where we have title.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Okay, and then we've got accessing fields here. So show you how you access those fields when you call those things. So this returns a record, and then $1 is going to return the unnamed first parameter, where modified is returning the named parameter. No need for a data class, and we have multiple return values. Beautiful. Other examples here of how this works. Okay, moving on. Matching.
Here we go.
And destructure with patterns. So, so now this is the interesting thing. So this is pattern matching what comes back and destructuring it. So this is taking the name parameter modified and making a local variable called modified. It's taking the first unnamed parameter coming back out and naming it title as a local variable. So now you can use title as a local variable. And the same goes down here for modified. We can use a local variable called modified. And these don't have to match. These could be, you could call this whatever you like. You can call this whatever you like. These are just variables, like any variable.
Right.
So that's really great.
And that's the key with records, is that creating them looks like a function call, and destructuring them looks like the formal parameter list of a function.
Yeah.
They're deliberately designed to be mimicking that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I want to just name, so you can see this is named, and you can put whatever you want here, but you can also, if you want to keep the same name, you can collapse it down and just do colon modified. So that's kind of like, it uses the name of this to get the name inside metadata. So it's kind of like a shortcut. So it's kind of nice. What else do we have here? Explain.
We're not at the JSON yet, which is
there
we go. Here it is.
Reading JSON values without patterns. So this is what you would do without patterns.
Yeah.
So this is what we've
nightmares.
Always had to deal with for very long. So does this JSON contain key metadata? Okay, it does. Then get the metadata thing. Is it a map? Okay, it is. Then we're going to get the title field as a string, and then we're going to get the modify field as a string. Pass it to pass. Then get out this local modify type. Then we can
which blows up if it's not there, because it's returning null, which can't be made into a string.
So so these two could potentially blow up if these fields don't exist, and then which is again, like, just to be clear to people, having your code crash is not a bad thing, right? Don't protectively program, because what you're going to end up doing is hiding the mistakes, right? What you can do is say, okay, I'm passing some external thing. If the passing fails, report that error and tell the user nicely, okay, sorry, I couldn't download, or get it to say something went wrong, right? That's nice programming, but don't just put default values everywhere. Don't just hide everything and say, oh, if it's null, then put a blank string. Because then what you're doing is you then hide the fact that you're missing the field, and you'll never know that until you have to literally debug it and find that later, right? So anyway, but this is nice. So if here, for example, if metadata was not given, it would be nullable, which means it doesn't match this. And then to map is not nullable, and therefore it wouldn't pass into here. But still, you would then get a format exception, unexpected JSON, and so on, right?
Right.
Okay.
But this is old school. This is the way we used to do it. Now, down here a little bit, it's going to be the way to do it with the new stuff.
Yeah. So okay. So then here we go.
Oh, so much nicer.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, beautiful.
Oh,
So JSON case. So this is matching it with this pattern here, and then the case then also does the destructuring and pulls out the variables into these local variables of these types. So this is basically saying, is JSON a match for a map with a field metadata, which is a string, which has a map on the inside that has a field called title and has a type of data called string, then it will extract that into this variable, and it's all like, look, spelled out really equally. You don't have to put all this like code in there. Brilliant. And then right at the end of that, okay, it matches that with the if condition. It's extracted those two variables, and we can just use those two variables. We destructured out and use them in the return response.
With proper type promotion too. It already knows it's a string. It knows title is a string for further down.
And if this came back as null, then this case statement wouldn't match, and it would throw this. Right now, you could make that string question mark if you wanted it to be nullable, but then you're pushing that null downstream, which is what you want. So then this in your return type would have to be nullable here, and so on. Right. So proper handling there as well. So this is wonderful. All right. So, I mean, this is the nice thing. We can go on. I mean, I feel like I don't want us to go through the entire code lab, because I feel like people should go try it themselves. You'll learn a lot about Dart 3. I will mention, though, that this is kind of cool when you kind of get type. And when you have a type field, like we're seeing, like type H1, type P, and so on, then you can say, oh, is the case type, is that a P or a H1? Then interpret it and return a H1 object, and doing that, this kind of fun type safe sort of destructuring of inputs. So I'm sure that's what they get to. I'm just guessing, but I'm not going to go to it right now because I don't want to spoil it. So
okay,
all right.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Yep.
I'm not sure. I feel like we've done a lot of on the previous episodes around Dart 3 and multiple return types. I could bring up code that we've done before. I think let's do some examples. See if we
drag
can
and drop. Drag and drop.
Yeah, let's see if we can use some of these principles. So what has anyone said in the chat here? Let's quick look.
Drag and drop people want. You already said that. Yes.
Yeah. So someone said the worst thing for devs is when another dev adds or does things that swallows errors. Yeah. So when that happens, because then you can't capture the error, you can't deal with the error situation. It just it totally doesn't help at all. Anyway, let's go with flip cards, right?
Yeah.
All right. The internet has spoken. Okay, so what are we going to do here? What form factor? We do like a square grid and do like a 3x3 or something like 4x4. I don't know. Let's see. So let's use some widgets that we don't normally use, just to spice things up a bit, I think. So first of all, we're going to want a flip card. We'll call it a flip card. So not to crash with a material card, we could exclude it. I'm not going to go there. Why? Why not? So if you, let's say I name this class card.
Okay.
I can't use the card widget from material because it's a name collision. It's always going to use the one local in scope, which is this one in the file. Is it card? It is card, isn't it? Material card. I can't remember. Hang on. That's not going to work, Simon. Let me just see. It's card, isn't it? The widget. Yeah. So this would be the normal material card, right? So if I put card in here, it's not going to complain. Now this card at the top here now refers to this class. I just command clicked on it. It's taking me down, right? So if you want to deal with that, and you might get name collisions, you can also do hide card. So it's going to import everything from material in the import, but hide card, right? So that's kind of helpful as well to get rid of that. You can also alias if you want to use both and say as material or something else as M. You can also do hide card as well. And now everywhere where I want to use that package, I could then do an M dot prefix, which I obviously don't want to do for this case, but you get the idea. All right, I'll shut up now. Let's get back to the good stuff. How about coin flipping? We'll do table flipping. Should we do like little tables that we just keep flipping? Right. All right. So we have a card, and what is our card? It's going to be what? A decorated box. with a decoration, enough a box decoration, and in fact, you know what? We could do a shape decoration, can't we? I forget.
Ooh.
I remember what you actually use shape decoration with. It's just you can use it in decorate box, can't you? Okay, I feel like this is just components provided. Yeah, and provided a shape. Let's do that. And then this is going to be a rounded rectangle border radius. Here's one for you. Do you know why I do this and not border radius dot? Is it dots? Is it like a shortcut for this? I think dot circular. I don't use this. You know why? Because it can't be made constant. For some reason, it's not constant. I don't know if you can make it. I'm not even going to go there because it calls all, which is a const constructor, and const and circular is a const constructor. So I don't see any reason why. I think there was a change in. Actually, let's put this in. Let's edit this file and see if it complies. I don't know what's going on. Let's see if the compiler complies. I'm going to edit this and just see if it complies because they improved const handling in constructors in Dart 3. So we know what we can patch that in, and finally I can shorten my statements. We'll find out. So can I make this const? Will it complain? Should be fine. Oh my goodness me.
Maybe you can make it const. Oh no.
So, see, I don't get it. I don't get it because all of this is const. Is that because it hasn't my edit hasn't been picked up? Maybe if I compile it, it'll work. We'll try. Let's see what happens.
You also need it in the const. You need the declaration also const too. That for the border radius dot circular. Okay, and also where it's calling radius. Yeah. Won't that need to be there like that?
I know. Let's find out.
I think it would be.
There you go. Look.
Win. I won. All right.
That means that we might be able to patch that in the framework, and finally, I can have const radius without having to type it all out manually.
Yep.
They didn't just forget that it wasn't possible to do that in previous versions, and yeah, we'll probably PR that afterwards.
Right.
It's one of those bugbears that I've always seen. There's so many of those little things that I just look over because I've been doing it for so long. Right. Let's see. What else we want? We want a child widget that is going to be.
So someone watching this show should quickly submit an issue. Let them say it's ready for loading, and then submit the PR against it, and you'll be credited with having solved this before Simon does.
Fine by me. And guess what? I can make this const right now. All right, and then we need the color now.
Making a live PR, I like that. Yeah.
I could do, I guess. I don't think people would be that impressed.
No, it's pretty boring.
Right. What happens? Can I hot restart? Oh yeah. Error.
An error. You?
Oh. I think we changed the framework and he went, no.
You got to restart.
Let's see. It may still go nope. Like there may be anything in the framework source code, not ideal. That's why it warns you. Because there's like several caches and other things in that. You're not supposed to do that. And this constant evaluation error. So Flutter assemble rule, something. We did something.
The longest line I've seen ever. The longest single line.
Complaining about this line. However, constant promotion should work. I may poke some people with this. Let me pop that to one side. Poke some people with. I'm gonna.
Cool. All right.
For later. Anyway, let's undo that and not wreck our demo right now.
Yes.
And then, yes, you can't. So what's really so annoying me is that I can now just do border radius all, radius dot circular, right? So I can put those two lines in my code, and it's constant.
Wow.
It's just bonkers to me, right? It just find it probably. So it's modifying it. Let's see. Come on, we can do it. All right, so we'll have some cards, and then maybe what we can do. We looked at making them. Oh, lovely red screen. That's a good start.
Yeah, with no error. Is there an error there? I don't see.
There's not an error screen because I made it red, so maybe I should make it blue.
Yeah, that's scary. Ship it with a red screen. Yeah, there we go.
In the center, and aspect ratio 1. What was it? 0.6. Is that the right way around? Yeah. 7. Quite right.
Yeah.
Let's give that what? 12 more rounds. Yeah. Right. So we have a card. We want to lay a bunch of these out. So let's do multi-card layout. Oh, that sounds like a nice widget.
Yeah.
And I guess we're going to give it a list of cards.
Pick a card, any card. You knew I was going to say that eventually.
Oh, it was going to come out, wasn't it? Okay.
I'm so predictable.
So I'm going to give it a list of cards. So let's pop that in there. Remote. Children, whatever, cards. I mean, these could be any widgets, to be fair, but we'll say cards for now to limit this. And I guess we're going to want to differentiate our cards in a minute. So,
card.
how many I've done there? We'll find out. So I think we want to differentiate these. So let's put. We want to have, so if we do like a match game, we probably want them to have some sort of unique data attached to them.
Let's just use integers for now.
Card data.
Okay.
And then card data. And then this could be what a icon data. And maybe a score.
Oh.
What's that different score? I know it's just something to pad this out, I guess.
Okay.
Put score first. Okay, and then right. So now up here is going to be unhappy.
Right.
So we need a way. So we could match the icon data. Say it's a match. Ideally, you probably want a different data point, like an ID or something unique. So that way, you might have the display slightly different. But for the minute, we'll use the icon data. I think that's a good starting point. So, wonder if can we do like a random shuffle on an array? A nice way of doing that. I feel like there was a function in
shuffle. It's dot shuffle.
Shuffle.
Dot shuffle. Dot.
Perfect.
Because shuffle returns nothing. You have to cascade it.
So now what I really want, I guess we can generate these. So let's make
dot shuffle. Come on, hurry up and fix it.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Why is this having a hissy fit? Too many positionals. Loads of positionals. Oh, this is named. That's why this is data. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
So let's have a final cards. I guess card data. and init state, and we'll do some random generation. Actually, we could do let's do make final.
Always put your super init state first. Always. I keep seeing it get moved around in people's code, and then I have to correct them on it.
When you do the templates, it puts the in the wrong.
Yes.
It super annoys me. I'm like, why?
It's wrong. It's wrong. The template is wrong. Yeah.
Right. What was I going to say? Cards. Let's say cards in list dot generate, and we'll have 9 cards, and have our function return card data, and let's get.
Oh, John, you should come back. You should come back and talk to us.
If you're back, come back.
Yep, he's in the chat.
He's probably sneaking and talking in the chat from a meeting. Don't worry, John. We won't tell on you.
Yeah.
Right. Import Dart math.
We won't tell Bing Chat that you're not here. Or that you are here.
All right.
Yeah, flipping
When we
cards.
have import math like this, I just tend to do it because I'm just used to it. Next in. So we random 100. I don't know why not. Each one is different random value. Icon data. So do we actually have an array of icons? Is there our icon.values?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting idea.
That's really annoying because
they're all individual consts, I think. They're all enums or whatever.
All right,
They're not even enums. Wow. They're not enums.
We could do a random index somewhere into the range of
random icon.
Really is truly random then.
Yeah. Oh look, it's a laser blaster. Oh look, it's a popcorn maker.
Wait, you're making a popcorn maker? What?
We're trying. Hi, John.
Yeah.
We're trying to make like a random set of images, but there's no nice range of random numbers that would make sense to put together in a game.
Yeah.
The problem is that these skip so many index. I mean, maybe these aren't right.
They mean something to the material people. The material people just decided arbitrary numbers for all these, I'm sure.
They are. No, they're from Unicode, right? They're Unicode. They are the Unicode
Are
standard.
they? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure a lot of them are like these ones. That's a Unicode. That's a Unicode standard one there.
Okay. Okay.
That's one of the reasons why I think these are all different.
Yeah, but there's not a nice indexable list. Right.
I guess what we'll do right now is we'll say icon selection, and then just have a few icons that we'll choose from right now. So come on, give me some names of icons. Box, there's got to be something like box, add box. There you go. Icons, user, is it user or something like that?
Yeah, there's
verified
some
user, sure.
Verified user. Oh, there's the blue check. The blue check. Woohoo!
We have a check. What else? We got icons. Roof,
air conditioner. Yeah, AC air conditioner.
Is that AC,
AC unit. Yes, AC unit.
Can we give some more?
you want like an
stop
alarm
sign.
or stop
Stop
sign?
sign.
Yeah, stop.
There's like a stop. Let's have that.
Yeah, stop circle. Ooh.
Stop circle. There you go. What else we got? Come on.
Come on, chat room. Come on, chat room.
Is there like a folder or something? I don't know. File, folder.
Folder.
Like a nice folder icon.
Folder delete. Folder delete.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a terrible icon. A little trash icon on the folder.
Is that what it is? That's what your trash can?
Like what?
He's seeing him in the left bar there. Look at that. Yeah, it's great. I'm having too much fun. This shouldn't be this fun. All right.
They're like, come on, come to chat. Give us some icons.
Scar.
Auto delete. Yeah.
Oh, what delete? Sweep.
Auto
Key.
delete. Yeah. Sweep around.
KEY key.
EY. All right, that's right.
Somebody's saying clock.
All right, yeah. Clock. Of course, that's a good one. Yeah, clock.
Clock. Yes.
And close is another one that somebody threw in there.
Ship. The ship it icon. The ship it icon.
Well, there was like an actual, or maybe it's a long.
You're the one from Discord with the little mouse.
Yeah. Well, that's like from GitHub. It's from GitHub.
Oh, is that the GitHub one?
Yeah.
Umbrella.
Umbrella. Ooh.
Oh, look, Discord.
Oh.
When have we had brands in there?
Discord. What?
Do we? Wow.
What does it show? What is it? Oh, it's a Discord. That's the Discord icon. Oh my God! I can do a Discord icon now.
How did Discord?
They have Discord, but they don't have Twitter.
Like, you got all these, like, how the
Is
hell
it
do
for
you get?
Facebook? Is it one for Facebook?
No.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, Facebook.
Is there a
Am
GitHub one?
These extensions on something I don't know, or is this actually in the material icon set now? If it is, I'm flabbergasted. It's not even loading.
That's great.
Oh, God,
things you learn every day. This I learned today. There are icons in Flutter for Discord.
ID does not like it when you open up megabytes of.
Oh, that thing's huge. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't mean to do that. No.
Oh, you should have just looked at it on the web. Why did you just look at it on the web?
I think ID gone down.
Oh, you hurt.
It's locked up. It's locked up on me.
Well, so much for this particular program. Come back next week, guys, and we'll do a different program that doesn't crash.
Hang on.
Unstuck.
And let's see. I think it came back. That's
okay. All right. Oh, they added them in Flutter 3.7, says the chat. About the
next week we'll do live coding on a Commodore 64.
Yes, right.
And then next week we live code a Commodore 64.
Okay, now what is he wanted to see in this multi-billion line file?
Yeah, so do we have?
All right, let's leave that as our possible icon selection, right? Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. That's plenty. That's plenty. That's enough.
Is we want to randomly choose an icon, so we say we want to say icon selection, icon length. Modulus.
Well, you want two of them so they can match.
Indeed. Hang on.
Before you shuffle, you got to have two of them, right?
Hang on. Rand. I'm going to just make you give me a mess up. Hang on. I want Rand.
Next int of that length, yes. Next int, I think, not double.
You can do next int. You can do whatever. Sure.
Well, next int max automatically does the right.
Yes,
number.
yeah, that works.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. That'll work.
No, we want two.
Ship it.
We want to create. So hey, mate, we need to create
two of the ones. We
say final count equals 9 or something. Cont count.
Okay. Nine can't match. 9 can't have pairs.
You gotta have an even number if you want to match.
Yeah.
But how? Hang on a minute. 12.
Yeah, 12. 3 by 4. That'll be good.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we can say how many we want icons to equal list.generate. How many? And we want to say count.
Divide by 2.
2.
Right.
Divide by 2. And do our icon selection there.
And then double them up. Just add the list to itself. And then shuffle.
And then we could say count. I guess we just have different scores for each one. I don't really care. What do you want to do? We can actually generate, I guess, duplicate these cards.
Yeah, just list list.
Yeah,
itself,
like Randall said, just duplicate the list, merge it into one, and shuffle it.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So what we return, and in fact do it like this. So we actually returning.
I do occasionally have good ideas. Yeah.
Let's say.
As I like to say to my clients, I have my moments of brilliance.
And then we
Or
can do cards.
feeling, if I'm feeling less sure, I have my moments of clarity. Sometimes that's the threshold it gets up to. I have my moments of clarity.
What do we think? Look good?
Yep.
Looks good to me.
Yeah.
I like set card.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right, and then we should be able to take cards. I know I shuffle them each time now. So now, what do we actually have here? It was a list of card data. Oh no, we need to now mount. We need to map that. So a nice way of mapping this is take for final card in cards, card widget with the data set to card. This is the different. Again, this is us differentiating between what is a widget and what is the data behind the widget, right? So card data is our state, whereas card is the widget. All right. So now we've made this multi-card layout, we actually have to make it do something because right now it's a container. So let's load this up, see if it compiles. That's a good step forward.
And ship it.
Yep.
Ship it. Yes. Let's have some fun with this. Right. Okay, good. Black screen. It's exactly what we're looking for, believe it or not.
Wow.
So, wow, so cool. Look at that amazing application.
That's
All right.
a really dark black.
Years and years of knowledge there.
That is so black.
Is it?
That is blacker than the black ship in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I want
That's
random
the blackest ship
I think
I've
no,
ever
ignore that.
seen.
We don't want random color. Right. Okay. Right. Moving on. Actually,
I could shine a light at my screen and it still wouldn't be anything but black.
what are we doing here, people? What are we doing? So we want to make our.
I don't know.
We want to display these. Let's say, okay, custom multi-child layout. For those that have never done that, we'll do one of those instead of a grid view to show you how you use it. Why not? Then we'll do a multi-card layout delegate and custom was it multi-child layout delegate? I can't remember. Multi-card that one. That's the one. And we make one of those here. And then we give it children, and then in here we want to go for card in cards, layout ID. We need to basically be able to way of identifying a child in the multi-child layout and use it with layout ID. I don't know if it's required. I can't remember if it is, but we're going to treat it as if it is because that's the way I remember doing it. What we'll do a trick here. So we're going to pass in a list of cards into our multi-child layout. Again, this is not because we need the widgets. This is because use for data. And then let's go back up. So now we pass cards in. And the ID will treat as the card hashcode. That is going to break right now because we inject the same set twice. We're not cloning them. So these two sets are going to have the card data going to have the same hash code. So what we actually need to do is add a little copy with. Is what we want. What I'm doing Cont, I want this.
If only you had tools in your IDE that could automatically generate a copy with from a class that has finals. You just type faster. I know you type faster than any macro.
Also, it kind of shows people the way of actually doing it rather than.
Yeah. Here's how you build a house, one brick at a time.
Make these name parameters. No, that's not making
You have a lot of renaming to do.
So that makes sense. Yeah, looks good to me. Essentially, what this is doing, this is saying you can pass in an override from either one of the two parameters that are inside the class, and if you specify them, it will use those. If you don't, it's null because you didn't specify the parameters. Therefore, it will use the one that's already on the object. And this is a way of saying copy with additionally with changing the parameters. It's quite common practice. All right, so then what we can now do is up here when we copy the set, we can now say, it's a nice way. I guess we'll just do map. Yeah, hard set map PL, and then we'll just ignore those two parameters. And why is that having a problem?
You should have just wrote a clone instead of a copy with. It's like
these should be named parameters by default.
See, now you feel it's extra work.
Good practice also means if we do want to make a copy at some point, you've got that in there.
We will.
But essentially, this is acting like clone because we've not provided any additional parameters.
Yes.
Now that means by default, the hash code, that is the inbuilt hash code, which is what you call the identity hash code on this object, is different because it's a completely new object that we've constructing here. All right.
Yep.
Then what we can then do is use that hash code as the ID because it's unique per card. We could also treat this as a set. That's another way of guaranteeing uniqueness. Won't go into that right now.
You could use the card itself as the ID. Because that's a unique object.
Oh, the way he's doing it now, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I don't want to do that. Sorry, that's actually because we're generating the card as widgets, which will generate each time build this code, right? So,
right.
All right, so now we've got our multi-child layout. What do we want to do in our layout? So first of all, should readout always needs to be implemented, and this is a covariant parameter, meaning that this type should be changed to this type in this case, and then we get our old delegate being passed in, and we say this tells us if it needs to read out. We say if old delegates cards does not equal the new delegates cards or this dot cards, then it should rebuild. Right now, you can't really do that with a list. It's going to complain. It's not that. It's actually going to complain because you're not doing a deep equals here, right? This is just doing in effect, this is fine for us because it only has to relay out if the cards array is different. But if we actually change the data, maybe we want this to do this. So there's actually a list equals built into the framework, which is like what we call a deep equals. It checks the value to each of the entries. So we're going to do that instead. So it should rebuild, it should relay out if list equals is equal to false, right? If they're not equal, we want it to rebuild, yeah? All right, so now layout, fun bit. I'm gonna flip these around. All right, so perform layout. Let's give us some space.
There's a lint that keeps you from doing equals false and just simply putting a not in front of the list, but you don't have those lints enabled.
So we were saying that do we always just want to say that there's always we were saying 12, right? So do you want to say there's always 4 across right now, and then you
three across.
Three across, 4 down. Yeah.
Right.
4, yeah. Okay. Yeah. 3 across. All right. So we'll say int column equals 0 else column is less than column plus.
Sure, 1, 2. Right.
And then what we can do is say do something like we basically want to turn our 2-dimensional index into a 1-dimensional a 2-dimensional offset into a 1-dimensional index.
It'll be inside when you do the row for row equals 0 to 4, then you're going to take call times 3 plus row.
Yep. Now the point here I was just going to make is it might be nice to also have it so that this is not we could have like int rows is card length divided by 3, right?
Right. And the 3s should probably be replaceable too, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? So now we can parameterize this to say like int calls, right?
Yep.
Pass that in these.
Why did I think this was only going to take 10 minutes? I was so
I
wrong.
know, it's always the same. You can
You get into this, then we're off in the next hour. People are
That's
going,
it's good though.
they're looking at their watches. They're thinking,
We
should I call the babysitter and let her know I'm still going to be late?
we will post the code on my gists, and
Okay.
we'll post it in the description of the chat,
Right.
and we'll post it in the like comments from the recording as well.
Sure.
All right, so we want index now, right? So we want a final index, which is going to be row times rows plus column.
Yes.
And give us our index into our array. Then we can say final card equals cards index. Okay. So now we've got our card. We need to now look up that item to lay it out on the screen. So let's go and find that widget. So we actually have some methods available to us in this class. That is things like get size, has child, layout child, perform layout, so on and so forth. Position, we're going to be using that one. And we're also going to be using layout child as well. And what else are we going to use? I think we don't need has child because we'll guarantee that there's certain things. So child ID in this case is that ID that matches from the layout ID widget. So
why didn't you just use a grid view?
Well, this is why I want to show how you might do like custom layouts.
Oh, okay. I see. But grid view might be the solution for people that don't want to type this much.
They want to do it the easy way, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to do it the easy way.
You don't have to do it this way. No, I didn't really.
Next, Simon implements multiplication as repeated addition.
Yeah. In binary.
All right, so now come on. Now we got our. So we want let's do our child constraints here. So we know the size coming in. That's the parameter here. Is the size of that we got to lay out to. So in the case that we just said with rows, we know how many rows we want now. Final. We'll say width or child width is going to be our size width divided by rows, giving us our size of the child. And then
you want the width to be the width divided by the columns, right?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Good catch.
And
John, that's why we brought you back, to be able to solve these problems.
See that? Genius. That's genius right there. Okay, so now we actually we'll do child constraints. And that is going to be box constraints that are tight constraints for the width and height that we specified. So width, I'm bring that up. I don't need it in a separate thing, so we'll just bring it in there. Height. Up. And you can always print off the constraints if you want to kind of know what that is. So that's what we kind of want to lay out to. So we'll lay out the child based on those constraints. And it gives us back the actual child size because if it may not be tight, but it is in our case. And then our position is going to be an offset, and the offset is going to be an X and Y position. So our X position, which is the first parameter, is going to be our column times child constraints width, and row, and our Y offset is child constraints times max. Everyone got that? Good. Let's see if it works. It failed because I forgot to put columns across, so we should probably make that optional and give it a default of, as I said, 3.
Yeah. 3 will work.
You want to use that then down in the
Oh, well, I'm just going to play up here.
Yeah, you hardwired 3 in a couple places down below, I think.
Yeah.
I did. You're right. Calls. There you go.
There we go.
Good start.
Just do a global sub 3 change to calls. That works.
Correct. What do we do? 0 to 11.
Until it doesn't.
Yeah, right.
What do we do wrong, guys?
I don't know. What did you do
Uh-oh.
wrong?
Oh, it looks good. It's in the upper.
Did your
those
window
are the
too
cards.
small?
Those are the cards.
Yeah, but it's trying to go for another row.
Yeah, because you
Uh-oh.
should have a fourth row. Where's the?
May the fourth be with you.
Yeah.
But it's breaking, guys. It's not working.
Oh, you're painting off screen, maybe. Maybe you're not in a safe area.
No.
Where's your original width and height from?
Hang on. Row times coals? Yes, that's wrong. That's right.
Ah.
Come on, you're going to spot that, guys. Come on. What? Do I have to do everything?
Oh,
Yes, you do.
and
we just get to take credit because we're on the team. That's how the real world works.
ooh, now we have padding.
Yes.
Look at that.
Padding.
What we can also do now is
padding.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ooh.
centered cards. Pick a card, any centered card. Oh, look at that. Oh.
So there we go. That's our lovely layout. So you can see there how just combining like our own custom whatever we want to do to layout, along with some other widgets in our lovely multi-card layout custom widget. You can do some really cool stuff. I mean, that's just the basic here, right? So let's just display the cards and have it so you flip and it matches them, and then we can have a win state, yeah, and be quick.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So, all right, let's go to a card and let's improve that layout of this card here. So we're going to have a center. We need
center icon, the icon thing.
I'm trying to remember how I've done the flip before. Do we flip vertically? Do that way around? Horizontally?
Either way.
Horizontally seems less annoying.
It's jarring. All right, let's do that.
Yeah.
So this becomes stateful, and we'll have a flipped state, yeah. And we'll have our data is going to be mutable now because we'll have it. Actually, no, we'll have it immutable. We'll have it mutable and we'll have a bool matched. Yeah, something like that. And then we can use our copy with. I don't know. We'll see if it works. Yep.
You make the errors go away so much faster than I do. Like an order of magnitude faster. You see an error, oh, boom, I'll fix that.
All right, let's see.
Matching brackets kill me.
Icon, widget, data, icon.
It's because Simon is just a robot running.
Yeah, I know.
I'm really Bard in disguise.
He's a Bard. He's Bard in human form.
When Google wanted a prototype for Bard, they came to Simon.
What's going wrong?
There we go.
Icon. Why is that not working?
It's not widget dot.
Come on, you meant to tell me this. Come on,
you can't. Yeah. Well, we thought you knew this after you had your experimenting with Conts before on the box circle.
The Bard can't get everything right, people.
But I just ask it. I just tell it what I want, and it gives me code, and it should work automatically.
Right?
Oh, Simon, some relevance.
We can use an enum for the flip status, and the new switch thing. Forgot the name.
Switch thing. Yeah, that's what it's called. The switch thing.
Switch.
Now we're calling it the switch thing. It has a new terminology. Let's have a look at that. We can also let's do fitted box here. Let's do fitted box.
It's much better when they fit. Yes.
And
when they're not so tiny.
Yes. Those unconstrained boxes, they go everywhere.
And let's add a padding.
See how wide that unconstrained box gets. It's all the way wide.
That looks good, doesn't it?
Ooh,
Yeah,
nice. That's pretty.
All right.
I
so
see the
where all-
match. I see the
I know
match.
where all the
Right
matches
in the
are.
bottom row. Bottom row. Second to third row.
Click.
Yes, there we go.
So we just need that. Come on, we can do this. We can do
Yeah,
this.
yeah, we're getting close. We're getting close.
I can do it.
Right. So let's we'll wrap this. I fill in a material. We get our touch feedback, and we'll move our shape and color onto that material, and get rid of our decorated box. So this affords us now the blue things are materials. Now we can wrap our aspect ratio with an inkwell. And our on tap
Inkwell.
should give us our touch effect. So let's see, tap. There we go.
Oh.
Now we get our lovely ripples.
Oh, that's
and
pretty.
We're very clever about this. I can't remember, but we're going to try. I think we can actually change the. Can we change like the highlight? Is it highlight color?
Is it highlight or is it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh no, that's.
You want the
No,
highlight, or do you want the splash? The
splash color. Oh, it's splash color.
yeah.
And then this can be with opacity 0.4. I know that sounds about right. I forget.
Okay.
And then we can also then say down here, I know our lovely cards. Where are they? Sorry for making everyone dizzy. We'll say final theme equals theme context. We'll make this the theme color scheme primary something or other, isn't it? Primary, yeah, that's not right. Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Oh,
Lovely.
pretty.
Lovely.
Oh.
So we could actually do a hover and highlight. Actually, that's another thing we could do because we're on desktop. So bonus
Flutter,
points.
building beautiful apps in record time.
Okay, so we need to
be able to turn it over.
Yes.
Yeah. So
the way I would do this, let's just see. So let's do a transform, and yes, we could do.
Do you want to flip them, or would you rather do something like animate the icon from basically invisible or a size 0 to the side?
Blue to kind of move, right?
Okay.
Let's just try this. Late final animation controller, and then have a simple. We'll make it so that let's just do a little bit of. See where we go to. Duration, otherwise it won't like that. How long? Let's make it really, really slow to begin with. Yeah, 2 seconds.
All right, I got to jump again. I got to get in the car and go pick some kids up. So
all right, well,
I'll catch the end of it. Catch the end of it later. Looks good. See you.
Cheers. Have a good one.
The corners are changing colors.
Corners are changing colors.
It's probably because the material should be behind the card, not behind.
Oh, yeah. No. So what's happening there is this is actually correct. It's because the inkwell doesn't have a shape. I'll show you how to fix that. Let me just do the animation first, and I'll show you how we fix that. Sorry, that was my mistake. I missed that. All right. So when we tap on it, let's have an on tap function up here. On tap card. If flipped, if it's flipped, then we want to run our animation in reverse to go backwards. Is it reverse or backwards? I can't remember now. Oh no, I've lost it. I've lost my Flutter knowledge. It literally has forward, reverse. I thought it was forward.
Animation controller.
Reverse. Oh, ignore me.
Okay.
It was there. I just didn't find it for some reason. Right, so if it's flip, we'll do this, and then we'll also flip our parameter. This way, when you tap on it, it toggles between forward and reversed animation. We add that to our inkwell. And then to fix that corner case, what you're missing is called custom border. And you want to put basically the same border. Now I can bring it up here and say border. You can also just copy and paste it twice, right? But it's a bit nicer maybe to have border twice. The reason for doing that, let me remove the transform here. The nice reason for doing it this way, let me refresh that. So this means that when it paints the splash, it's painting inside that shape up to that shape boundary. What you're not doing is painting those corners and then saying asking material to clip. Because clipping involves it clipping all of the contents, everything that's rendered. So that icon in the middle will have to go through the clipping bounds to see if it goes outside. So it's actually more expensive to add clipping on a material than it is to add a shape on inkwell, right? In terms. Mildly less expensive because in this example it's minuscule, but when you start adding lots and lots of widgets and a big widget hierarchy, it makes a big difference. So one of the reasons why there was a performance problem in the very original version of Flutter was because of the clipping that was taking place. So clipping was removed, and instead some of these default behaviors now seep through. So yeah, if you want to fix this, you clipping by default was removed. Anyway, you just add the same border in two places, right? Simple. All right, let's add our flip. So we wrap this in an animated builder, and that has a animation parameter, which will be our controller, and it has a builder parameter, and inside here we're going to return a transform. Now, can we do? There is a isn't there a transform? Is it transform tween or something? I feel like there is. In fact, we could actually avoid. I think I just remembered a way to do this. Oh, flip. Interesting.
I'm thinking of ways to do it with the new Flutter Animate package, but yeah.
Well, that's not. I don't really know. I just realized. I think animate container. And let's just specify transform. It does. So we could actually use. We could have actually used animated container, but we're here now. Let's see how it treats the. This is how we do it, right? If you don't know, you go look and see how other things in the framework work. So in this case, I want to follow this down. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Matrix 4 tween. So that's the thing I was missing. And let's go back here. So a transform gives us a matrix, and we want to evaluate a matrix 4 tween from a beginning matrix to an ending matrix. And then we want to evaluate that. I'm just going to do it like this for the minute. We can tidy it up later. This is obviously means we're recreating the tween each time. Not ideal, blah, blah, blah. So I'm kind of curious, what does flip actually do here? Here you go, look. So there's actually diagonal 3. So let's, again, steal that matrix right here and say we have a, so the beginning is going to be what's called an identity matrix. We don't need all these parameters. An identity matrix is just like a one-to-one. And then diagonal, we want to flip the X, we're saying, right? So our scaling becomes -1, 1, 1. So by the way, diagonal is scale. So that's what it's doing here. Oops. So the theory goes that should do what we want. Click, click, click,
well, they're all flipped.
They're all flipped. Have we done it the wrong way?
Probably. I don't know. You started flipped. Your default was flipped at the top.
No. Console, no errors. So it's doing what I've told it to do, which is displaying nothing. Oh, I know why. Because no, that's because the child was not passed across.
Oh, okay.
So the child here on the outside of the animated builder is passing the child parameter, and we need to pass it on to the transform so it's inside it. There we go. Okay, good. So now if I click, It does
It
nothing.
does oh! It just takes a and it puts it way over there.
All right, so it's doing what we want. It's flipping, but it's not centering, right? So is that something that we can put on the transform and it'll do it for us? I hope it is, because I don't like dealing with the matrix calculations for this. Hey, look at that.
Hey, oh, beauty. Except you need to make it change the card when it's halfway around.
Why do these? Oh, because I start not flipped. No, I start flipped when I'm not flipped. Okay, that's fine.
Right, that's what I was saying that earlier.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
All right. So now we can do all this kind of stuff. Well,
they're all Facebook on both sides. What? Oh, right. You got a lot of Facebook ones that
time. So here's the question, right? So now we've got this flipping going. We actually want the inverse condition for a back side of the card. So we have a front side and a back side. And what we're doing is the trick. When we get to the halfway point, we display one and hide the other.
Yes.
So that's what we want to do here. So there's a few ways of tackling this. I'm actually thinking that what we could do is maybe look at the animation value and just hide the contents. We could actually have a different pattern. But
how about just stopping here and tackling it next week? That way we have something to eat.
Do we want to do this? We could also ask people to submit their
strategies from
here. How we
yeah, let's do that. Right. Let's do that. We've got a long enough show for today.
I think you're right, because we can go for a long time. So what I'm going to do right now, let's bring this up here.
I'm just going to save the gist
and post it on a gist, and post it in the chat here, and I'll also put it in the GitHub description after the show.
Okay.
And then if you want, we'll be taking suggestions. So make sure you tweet #Humpday Q&A and with your things, and we'll take a look before the show next week. And we'll see if we can pull a couple up on the show, do some reviews and talk about different implementations, and we'll do an implementation of our own. I think that's a wonderful way of taking this. Main.dart and say Humpday Q&A. Is it 17th May? Flip cards example. Flip cards example. 17th of May 2023. Humpday Q&A. Incomplete. Let's put incomplete so people know. Incomplete. All right. And I need to a little license on top, because people don't like using code without a license.
Never stopped me.
Shh. You're not going to tell people that.
License. That's the first thing I scrape off of my files.
Right. Public gist. Here we go. We do have another way than Twitter. You can also get us on Mastodon. Us at fluttercommunity.social.
You should get buy me
a
coffee.
We should do a buy me a coffee link. Yes, we will.
Doesn't Flutter Community already have that on this page in YouTube?
We have it somewhere. I know we should sort that out though, because we do have actually. To be honest, we do actually have a Patreon. If I can find the link, here we go. Patreon. This Humpday Q&A costs us $50 a month to actually use the software that we generate the streams with, at least, plus probably additional fees somewhere in there. So it's not. Thank you very much for joining us. We have to pay for it though. So any help you can give by giving to the Patreon will help everyone else on these live chats and other things as well that we do, like running the Mastodon server. And if you join Patreon, we'll give you a Mastodon account on the Flutter Community Social. Okay, I've posted the gist link that's in the chat. Here it is up on screen for those that come later, and I'll also put that in the GitHub description. Post your solutions, and we'll take a look next week.
You should have read the URL out loud so people that are listening only on audio can type it in.
Might take us a while.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just saying.
I'm not doing that. Don't even think of anything. I'm not doing that.
A3, B2.
Oh God, no. Right. Thanks very much everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again same time.
164 hours. No, 165 hours.
Around that time.
165 hours. There we go.
Same time, same
Ciao.
place next week.
We're out of here. Bye.
Bye.